By the year 2022, humanity had fully developed a virtual reality mass multiplayer online role-playing game, VRMMORPG. On Sunday, November 6, 2022, Sword Art Online SAO, the highly anticipated and renowned online fantasy game of the year, had already sold 10,000 copies in its first batch, with players forming huge lines at every game store 4 days before the sale of the game even began. A young 14-year-old male player accessed the game the moment the game was officially launched. Using the commonly known helmet game console known as the Nerve Gear, he entered the online virtual world of Aincrad, using his game avatar Kirito from his beta version gameplay after the Nerve Gear had finished calibrating his virtual body. Once inside, he found himself in the main town of the first floor, the Town of Beginnings. Kirito maneuvered rapidly through the city's central market while heading towards the city gate until a new player called Klein noticed his knowledge on the layout of the city and asked for Kirito's help in learning the game's mechanics after deducing that Kirito was a beta tester. Traveling to the west field outside the Town of Beginnings, Klein experienced some initial difficulty fighting against a level 1 monster called a frenzy boar and was reminded that the player could not feel any actual pain. Rather, there would just be an unpleasant feeling in its place, alongside the depletion of the player's hit point gauge when hit. Kirito expounded to Klein about the necessary motion for the use of sword skills, the essential feature of SAO, and demonstrated one such sword skill. Klein carefully listened to Kirito's explanation before finally killing the frenzy boar, much to his delight, though was surprised when he learned of the monster's weak power level. Several hours later, the boy invited Klein to continue hunting, but the latter declined due to feeling hungry. Even though eating virtual food in the game world would eliminate the unpleasant sensation of hunger when playing, it did not dispel hunger in the real world. Therefore, Klein decided to log out as he had ordered a delivery for a pizza and ginger ale at 17:30. However, when Klein opened his menu, he was surprised to find that the logout option was no longer there. Dismissing the logout option's unavailability as a glitch, the man attempted to contact a Game Master GM, but could not receive any response. As the town bells from the first floor's central town started ringing at that moment, all players were forcefully teleported to the Town of Beginnings. On the virtual screens at the sky, there was a system announcement that drew everyone's attention. Suddenly, a giant robed, faceless figure appeared, identifying himself as Kayaba Akihiko, the creator of the game and the only person with control over the game. Addressing the problem of the missing logout option, he announced to the players that he had purposely removed it from the game as another one of its features, thus trapping them in the game. While all the players were alarmed by his announcement, the Game Master continued on, revealing that attempts to forcibly remove the Nerve Gear would result in its transmitters dealing lethal thermal damage to the player's brain. When Klein voiced his doubts on the situation, Kirito confirmed that the Nerve Gear's signals essentially functioned like microwaves. Therefore, it was indeed plausible for the Nerve Gear to inflict lethal brain damage if the safeties were disabled. Kirito also explained that the helmet had an internal battery, which rendered Klein's proposal to disconnect it from its power source meaningless. Meanwhile, Akihiko declared that, despite having informed the outside world of the situation beforehand, friends and family members of some of the players had already ignored the warning, causing the deaths of 213 players. Akihiko also informed the removal of the revival system in the game. Therefore, when a player died in-game, their game avatar would be forever lost. At the same time, the Nerve Gear would fry the player's brain, thus killing them. He then told them that the only way to escape the game was to complete it, which meant clearing all 100 floors of Aincrad and their bosses, much to the player's shock. As he finished his announcement, he left a gift, a hand mirror, in everyone's inventory which they took out. At that moment, a huge blinding light changed the players to their true appearances, sharply dropping the number of female players by revealing that many male players were masquerading as female characters, though some female players were also masquerading as males. Afterwards, Akihiko revealed that his only goal was to create the game and intervene in it. Announcing the conclusion of the tutorial, Akihiko vanished. As everyone stood in silent shock, Kirito hallucinating the paper cut on his finger he had acquired just prior to entering the game, decided that since Akihiko was the genius behind the creation of Nerve Gear and SAO, everything the man had said had to be the truth. Dropping her hand mirror, a young girl reacted in fear and bumped into the player next to her, prompting everyone else to finally start panicking. While many of the other players pleaded to be released from their newfound prison, Kirito quickly took action and tried to bring Klein with him to the next nearby village, stating that the surrounding resources would soon be limited. However, Klein told him that he could not come with him, as he did not want to leave behind his friends in real life who were still in the plaza somewhere. Kirito realized that he could only protect one player at a time with his current skills, meaning that if Klein or one of his friends died, he would be blamed for their deaths since he was the one who had suggested to leave. Klein noticed Kirito's worries and politely told him that he should go ahead by himself, as he planned to go back to lead and protect his friends with the lessons that Kirito had taught him. He then tried to cheer Kirito up with a joke about his slight feminine appearance, which Kirito responded by stating that Klein's unkempt face suited him better. They then parted ways. Alone with no one else to depend on, Kirito ran through the town and outside the gate, vowing that he would survive in this game world and be free from the virtual imprisonment as he took out a wolf standing in his way. By December 2nd, 2022, approximately a month later, 2,000 players had already died, their names being crossed out on the Monument of Life simultaneously, while the first floor had yet to be cleared. On December 2022, Kirito reflected on how more than 2,000 players had died since the start of the Sword Art Online official service a month ago, while the first floor had yet to be cleared. Even Kirito, a former beta tester, had been unable to locate the boss room. A meeting was being held in Tolbana to discuss how to find and defeat the first floor boss. A self-proclaimed knight, Diavel, called the meeting to order at the town center of Tolbana. After a brief moment of joking among the attendees over the lack of a job system in the game, Diavel regained their attention and announced that his party had found the boss room at the top of the labyrinth. Much to their surprise, he declared that as the current strongest players of the game, they had a duty to defeat the boss, reach the second floor, and inform the other players in the town of beginnings that it was possible to clear the game, a proclamation that was received with enthusiastic approval. Diavel suggested the players to form parties with each other, as a raid group would stand a better chance against the boss than a typical party. As Kirito panicked when he saw that practically everyone else had already formed parties, he noticed a hooded girl alone and asked her to form a party with him, which she accepted. After forming the party, Kirito noticed her name, Asuna, beside her hit point gauge. After the parties had been formed, the meeting was interrupted by a player who introduced himself as Kibao. When he demanded an apology from several vague players for the 2,000 deaths in the game, Diavel realized he was referring to the former beta testers. Kibao affirmed the notion and accused the beta testers of not offering any help to the beginners and seizing all the best hunting grounds and quests for themselves. He then stated his suspicion that there were beta testers in the meeting and that they should relinquish all of their items and money, otherwise they should not be trusted by others. However, Agil intervened and defended the beta testers, stating that they should not be fully blamed for the tragedies of the fallen players. Pulling out a guidebook, he stated that this book, which was accessible to anyone, was created through information of the game provided by the beta testers. With the commotion resolved, Diavel read the guidebook to the players in the crowd, telling them that the boss on the first floor was Ilfang the Kobold Lord, who was guarded by minions called Ruin Kobold Sentinels. He also told them on its last bar of HP, the boss would switch its weapons for a talwar and use a different combat style. Thinking that the book was completely correct, the attending members decided not to scout the boss to check if there was any mistake on the book and planned to battle Ilfang the next day. At night, Asuna was eating dinner when Kirito came and joined her, prompting her to move away from him. Kirito gave Asuna a jar that contained some cream which she enjoyed very much. Kirito told her that the jar was a reward from a quest and offered to show her the trick. She quickly rejected the offer, stating that she came to the town not to enjoy food, but rather be herself and not rot away back in the first town. Even if she gets killed, she doesn't want to lose to the game. Kirito told her that he doesn't want a party member to die and asked her to try not to die. The next day, Kirito and Asuna were asked to target the boss's minions, the Ruin Kobold Sentinels. While walking to the boss, they planned strategies to defeat the minions. The group entered the floor boss room where Ilfang the Kobold Lord awaited along with his spawning minions, and the battle commenced. Diavel led the raiding party and gave out commands on blocking and attacking the boss and his minions. During the battle, Kirito noticed Asuna's speed, remarking that he could not keep up with her blade. As the boss's 4th HP gauge reached the red zone, Diavel ordered everybody to keep their distance, advanced ahead of the group, and approached the boss alone. This confused Kirito, as the original plan was for the raid group to surround it. However, Kirito quickly noticed that something was wrong when Ilfang pulled out a Nodachi instead of a Talwar, which Ilfang had used in the closed beta. Kirito told Diavel to stop and pull back, but he was too late, and the latter received a deadly combo from the boss attacks. As Diavel's health quickly dropped to 0, Kirito tried to give him a healing potion, but Diavel rejected it. In his last moments, Kirito realized that Diavel was after the last attack bonus item and was also a beta tester like him. Diavel asked Kirito to defeat the boss for everyone before shattering into many polygons. With Asuna's help, Kirito attempted to defeat the boss using the same strategies they had used on the ruined Kobold Sentinels. The boss proved to be fast and attacked Asuna first. Although she dodged the hit, her cloak was destroyed, revealing her face. They continued with their tactics until Kirito made a mistake and got hit, slamming into Asuna. Agile saved them from receiving the final blow and told them to recover, while the rest held the boss off. After they recovered, Kirito and Asuna gave one last hit, with Kirito dealing the last attack, defeating the boss, and obtaining the last attack bonus item, the Coat of Midnight. Everyone celebrated their victory until Kibao and his group reminded everyone about Diavel's death, stating that Kirito let him die by withholding information about the boss's attack pattern and accused him of being a beta tester. Not knowing that Diavel was a beta tester also. As everyone suspected each other of being beta testers, Kirito remembered Diavel's last words and gulped. Agile and Asuna tried to speak, but Kirito laughed and told the clearing group that they were better than those newbies, beta testers who did not know how to level up. He also boasted that he was not like the other testers because he went the farthest during the beta test. Furthermore, he knew the boss attack pattern because he had fought monsters using katana skills on higher floors. As a result, he had more knowledge than any information broker. Kibao and many players in the clearing group then accused Kirito of being a cheater before one of them categorized him as a beta tester, plus cheater. However, Kirito expressed enjoyment in having the new title and told the other players not to confuse him with other beta testers. After equipping the Coat of Midnight to distinguish himself from the other beta testers, Kirito soon left the group behind and proceeded to open the gate to the next floor. Asuna briefly stopped him and asked how he knew her name. In response, Kirito told her to look at her interface for the party screen. She then finally learned his name and felt silly to not have noticed it was there since the very beginning. Kirito then told Asuna that someone strong like her should find a guild she can trust, as there were limits on what a solo player could do, after which he disbanded the party and headed to the second floor. On April 8, 2023, at the 11th floor main town, Taft, the members of the Moonlit Black Cats Guild were celebrating in an inn because Kirito had appeared and saved them. The guild leader, Keita, extended an invitation to Kirito after he learned that he was a solo player. Hiding his true level, Kirito joined as a temporary member until the guild could be independent without him. Kirito was also asked to help with the stat development of another player named Sachi. A month later, Kirito and the guild were seen training in the Sunshine Forest on the 20th floor, where Kirito assisted the guild in taking down a killer mantis. To maintain his own level, Kirito would often sneak out at night to grind in the higher floor labyrinths. After coming back from his self-leveling, he received a message from Keita saying that Sachi had gone missing and the group were looking for her in the labyrinth. He quickly found her within the drains of the city with the help of his tracking skill. After learning that she was incredibly afraid of dying, Kirito tried his best to reassure her, constantly telling her that he would not let her die. Afterwards, Kirito would commonly comfort Sachi whenever she was afraid, thus helping her sleep by being by her side. Less than a month later, when the group finally collected 200,000 core, which was enough to purchase a guild home, Keita teleported to the town of beginnings to purchase a new base for the guild. While Keita was gone to buy the house, the other members decided to impress him by getting items from the labyrinths near the front lines. Kirito tried to object, but the members insisted they were strong enough. The group, excluding Keita, traveled to the 27th floor labyrinth, where they found a hidden door after finishing their hunting quota. Ducker, the guild's thief, picked the lock and found a treasure chest in the center room. Kirito quickly recognized it as a trap and tried to warn the group, but it was too late. Just as the guild members opened the chest, the room suddenly turned red and a swarm of monsters surrounded them. The group's teleport crystals failed to activate. The trap was an anti-crystal area with the only exit being sealed. Kirito tried to defend himself and reach Sachi while witnessing the other members fall one by one due to their low levels. Despite Kirito's effort to protect her, Sachi was killed as well. She had said something right before turning into polygons, but Kirito did not hear what she said due to the crisis. Several months later, on December 24, 2023, Kirito met with the information broker Argo the Rat, questioning her about the location of the Christmas event boss. Obsessed about the possibility of a revival item said to be in possession of said boss, Kirito hoped to hear Sachi's last words. It did not matter to him whether she hated him or not, he would take all her anger. As it was nearly time for Christmas Eve, Kirito changed into his best equipment while lamenting the deaths of his guildmates. A flashback was shown where Kirito informed Keita about the demise of the other members and told him that he had known about the possible trap since he was at a higher level due to being a beater. Keita cursed him and committed suicide by leaping off Aincrad's edge into the endless sky. Kirito then headed off to a 35th floor dungeon, the Forest of Wandering. Along the way, Kirito was followed by Klein and his guild, Furin Kazan. Klein initially wanted to fight alongside with Kirito against the Christmas boss, but Kirito refused. As Klein tried to convince his friend, another guild, the Divine Dragon Alliance, appeared near their location. Klein and his guild members decided to hold off the opposing guild while Kirito handled the boss, Nicholas the Renegade. While Klein and his fellows rested from their fight, a half-hearted Kirito appeared before them. Klein asked what was wrong and Kirito handed him the revival item, the Divine Stone of Returning Soul. After reading the item's description, Klein found out that it could only save a player during their 10-second end phase. As Kirito started walking off into the distance, Klein stopped him and requested he live on till the end. Kirito then headed back to his home and sulked in front of his desk while waiting for morning. Suddenly, Kirito was alerted by an incoming message in his inventory. To his surprise, he had received a recorded message from Sachi that was timed to appear at Christmas Day. After engaging the message record crystal, Kirito listened to the sound of Sachi's voice, telling him although she would probably be dead at that point, her death was not his fault. She mused on how her death was inevitable and asked Kirito to fulfill her wishes. She ended the message by humming Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and thanking Kirito for all the time he had spent with her. On February 23, 2024, within a field dungeon called the Forest of Wandering Silica, a mid-level player and beast tamer decided to leave her current party and return to Miche on her own after getting into an argument with one of its members, Rosalia. However, due to the field dungeon's design, she became lost and encountered the local monsters multiple times. After hours of navigating the forest, she encountered several drunk apes. However, she had left her party without taking extra healing items and her remaining stock of healing items were soon depleted. While Silica was distracted, looking for any leftover healing items, the drunk apes used the opening to attack Silica. As she was about to be hit with the final blow, her tamed monster, the feathered little dragon Pina, intercepted the hit, sacrificing itself in the process. The shocked Silica was then nearly killed by the apes, but was saved by Kirito, who had come across her by chance. After being saved, Silica grieved over the loss of her pet and dear friend. Silica regained some hope when Kirito explained about an opportunity to revive her partner with a special flower at the 47th floor. However, she is soon discouraged when she realized that the difficulty would be too high for her current level, as well as having a 3-day time limit to revive Pina. Feeling obligated for not being able to save her tamed monster, Kirito provided her with some sturdier equipment to increase her protection and partnered with Silica to retrieve the flower. Kirito would have gotten it himself. However, the presence of the deceased pet's owner was required for the item to appear. Silica asked him why he was helping her so much. Though she promised not to laugh at his response, she ended up laughing anyway after Kirito replied that she reminded him of his sister. Silica returned with Kirito to Miche, the main town of the 35th floor, to discuss their plans for retrieving the flower. While in town, Kirito dealt with some troublesome encounters with some of Silica's fans and Silica's ex-party member Rosalia. At the inn, Kirito explained to Silica about the concept of player killing and color cursors. Players who have attacked and/or killed someone are indicated by the cursor above their heads being orange, while a green cursor indicated that the player was not hostile to others. After having dinner, the two went to their own rooms. Silica, in her undergarments, was thinking about visiting Kirito's room when she heard the latter knocking at her own door. After Silica barely remembered to get dressed before letting her new party member in, Kirito took out a mirage sphere to show the known data on the 47th floor to Silica. As he was continuing with his explanations, he suddenly stopped and detected someone eavesdropping on them. He ran out to see who was there, but the player quickly fled. When Silica asked Kirito how someone was able to eavesdrop on them, Kirito explained that players with a high-level straining skill did not have to knock on the door to hear what was going on in the room. After spending the night at the second floor of the Weathercock Pavilion, Kirito and Silica began their journey to the southern section of the 47th floor from the main town on the floor, Floria. Before going to the location of the Tnuima flower, Kirito gave Silica a teleport crystal just in case something went wrong. After defeating multiple plant monsters along the way and conversing about Kirito's sister, Kirito and Silica were able to make it to the Hill of Memories and retrieve the Tnuima flower. Kirito asked Silica to revive Pina in Mishe as there were strong monsters around the area. However, when returning with the item, Kirito sensed a group of players waiting to ambush them and told Silica to get her teleport crystal out. Rosalia, who Kirito revealed to be the leader of Titan's Hand Guild, appeared and demanded them to give up the flower. When Silica wondered how Rosalia could be a member of an orange guild if she had a green cursor, Kirito explained that this was a simple trick where players like her find targets for the orange members of the guild. Kirito then told Rosalia that he was looking for her, under the request of a leader of the fallen guild, the Silver Flags, who wanted her and her guild to be sent to jail. The other members then came out of hiding, with their weapons at the ready. One of the members, after hearing Silica call Kirito by his name, recognized him as the Black Swordsman. The member warned Rosalia that Kirito used a one-handed sword with no shield build, was a beater, and a member of the Clearers. However, Rosalia rejected such a claim, believing that if he were a clearer, he would not be wandering on the lower floors. She then ordered her members to attack him. As the orange players attacked Kirito, he did nothing. Silica began to worry that he would die, and was almost ready to attack them. However, as she looked at his hit points, HP bar, she suddenly saw it rising again. The orange players continued attacking Kirito for a while, but eventually got exhausted from attacking, annoying Rosalia. Kirito then told the orange players that they did around 400 damage to him in 10 seconds, before revealing himself to be at a much higher level than them. In addition, his battle healing skill would heal 600 points within 10 seconds. Thus, they could be fighting him all day and he would not die. At that moment, Kirito took out a rare corridor crystal bought by the Fallen Guild's leader and planned to send them all to the prison on the first floor governed by the army. All the Orange Guild members seemingly gave in to Kirito's supremacy except for Rosalia, who told him that if he attacked her, he would go orange. Kirito, with his speed, rushed up to Rosalia and threatened to kill her, stating that as a solo player, a few days of being orange meant nothing to him. Rosalia then dropped her spear, and all of the members were sent to the Black Iron Palace's jail. Afterwards, Kirito and Silica returned to the Weathercock Pavilion. There, Kirito apologized for ending up using her as bait to lure the Orange Guild, revealing that he was afraid that if he had told her the truth beforehand, she would have been scared. Silica rebutted this, stating that he was a good person. Though Silica wanted to join him, their levels were too far apart and Kirito needed to return to the front lines. With Kirito's encouragement, Silica used the flower on Pina's heart, thinking of how she would tell Pina about her one-day adventure with Kirito. On March 6, 2024, there was a meeting at the main town of the 56th floor, Pani, where all the top players in the Clearers were discussing the advancement of the game. In this meeting, Asuna, the vice commander of the Knights of the Blood, debated with Kirito intensely over strategies to fight against the field boss, Geocrawler. Asuna's plan was to lure the boss into the town and then kill it while it was distracted by the non-player characters, NPCs. However, Kirito objected as they would be trampling on the NPCs' lives, though Asuna coldly stated that they were merely objects to the game, thus they would simply respawn after being killed, unlike the players. She also reminded Kirito of her status, and as thus he was forced to comply. Afterwards, Agil confronted Kirito about their constant bickering, causing Kirito to remember the advice about joining a guild that he had given to Asuna, and how amazing she had become. Later, on April 11, 2024, Asuna found Kirito sleeping at a grass hill within the 59th floor's main town, Danek, and tried to tell him off for not working at the front lines. Kirito responded that the weather in Aincred at that time was the best, and it would be a waste to be in the labyrinth on such a day. After listening to Kirito's reply, she rested beside him to test his theory and fell asleep with him. When Asuna woke up from her 8-hour sleep, she noticed Kirito watching over her and almost attacked him, before she remembered what had happened. To thank Kirito for protecting her as she was sleeping, Asuna tried to treat him to a meal at an NPC restaurant in the 57th floor's main town, Martin. There, they discussed about the concept of sleep player killing, caused by forced dueling. Before they could eat, however, they heard a scream outside and hurried to investigate. Upon arriving, Kirito and Asuna witnessed a murder within the city, which should have been impossible due to the anti-criminal code effect area feature within a safe area in the game. A heavily armored player was hung by a rope in front of a church, appearing to have been pushed out of a window after being impaled with a spear, and finally shattering into blue polygons due to the continuous piercing damage over time effect. As the killed player was still within the city boundaries, Kirito believed that the cause of death was losing all his health in a duel with another player. However, the winner notification for such a duel did not appear, eliminating that possibility. While investigating the murder case, Kirito and Asuna interviewed a witness, Yolko, who claimed that she was supposed to meet up with the victim, Kynes. After retrieving the murder weapon and leaving Yolko in the safety of an inn, Kirito and Asuna traveled to a player shop in the main town on the 50th floor, Algade, to have it appraised by Agil. Agil deciphered that the weapon, named Guilty Thorn, was created by a player named Grimlock. Kirito attempted to test if the weapon could harm him inside the city, but Asuna stopped him before he could stab his hand. They exited the shop after leaving the weapon with Agil. The next day, Kirito and Asuna met up with Yolko at the restaurant. They had been to the day before and learned that Yolko, Kynes and Grimlock were former members of the now defunct Golden Apple Guild, which had lost their leader Griselda. Yolko told them that after obtaining a rare ring from a monster, they voted whether they should keep or sell it, and came to the decision to sell it, with 5 people voting to sell it and only 3 voting to keep it. Griselda then went to the front lines to try and sell it, but never came back at all. Yolko mentioned that Grimlock was the leader's in-game husband, and that the killer may possibly be after the 3 Golden Apple members who were opposed the selling of the ring: Kynes, Yolko and Schmidt. By Yolko's request, Kirito and Asuna brought Schmidt to have him meet with Yolko. During their conversation, Yolko told Schmidt that she believed that the killer was the vengeful ghost of their deceased female leader, Griselda, since no normal player could kill another inside the safe area. Suddenly, as Kirito, Asuna and Schmidt are watching the panicked Yolko, she was murdered in front of them, stabbed in the back from a dagger through the open window. As she fell from the second-floor window, Kirito rushed to the window to call her name, but she shattered into blue polygons in front of his eyes. After witnessing Yolko dispersing into polygons, Kirito spotted the hooded murderer fleeing from the crime scene and attempted to capture him. During the pursuit, the hooded murderer took out a teleportation crystal. When Kirito noticed this, he used his blade-throwing skills to attempt to distract the hooded man, but the attack was blocked by the anti-criminal code effect area effect, while the murderer was not surprised by the attack. The hooded murderer then began to use his teleportation crystal, and while Kirito was chasing him, the bell suddenly rang, preventing him from hearing where the murderer was teleporting off to. Frustrated in his failed attempt to capture the perpetrator, Kirito returned to the room and slammed his fist against the wall, which prompted the immortal object pop-up to appear. Meanwhile, Asuna was guarding the terrified Schmidt, who fully believed that the murderer was the vengeful ghost of their deceased guild leader, Griselda, because the assassin's robe was similar to Griselda's outfit. But Kirito still believed that it was not a ghost, as ghosts could not use teleportation crystals, and believed that there must have been a logical explanation to the two murders within the safe areas. After sending Schmidt back to the Divine Dragon Alliance's headquarters, Kirito and Asuna contemplated about the recent events. Asuna began to believe that the black-robed player really was Griselda's ghost by having seen it twice. But Kirito still insisted that it was not a ghost, because a ghost would not be able to use or need a teleportation crystal. It seemed Kirito had an explanation regarding the teleport crystal, but he quickly disregarded it after. After a moment, Asuna gave Kirito a sandwich. Kirito praised the sandwich, thinking that the sandwich was bought, but he was then told that it was handmade by Asuna. Kirito jokingly suggested to auction Asuna's handmade food in order to get rich. This angered Asuna, causing Kirito to lose grip of his sandwich. As he witnessed the sandwich shattering into fragments, he fell to the ground, at first seemingly upset with the disappearance of the sandwich. But in reality he realized the truth about the crime, exclaiming that what they had seen was something else, and that there had never been any weapons or logic that could make murders possible in safe areas. Meanwhile, in the 19th floor's fields, the Hill of the Cross, Schmidt visited Griselda's grave, asking for forgiveness. Then a ghost-like voice was heard repeatedly asking, "Oh really?" and thus frightening Schmidt. Then he realized that something was getting close to him quickly, and Schmidt turned around only to find a rabbit. Schmidt, now relieved, turned around to find a hooded ghost. The ghost asked Schmidt what he had done and took out a sword. Frightened, Schmidt confessed that on that day, he had found a crystal and a memo in his belt pouch. But he was then interrupted by a man's voice asking him whose orders was it, and a second hooded ghost appeared. Schmidt believed that the second ghost was Grimlock's and replied, saying that he did not know who had given the order and claimed to never have murdered anyone. The two ghosts then took off their hoods and were revealed to be Yolko and Keynes, who were very much alive, shocking Schmidt. Meanwhile, Kirito explained to Asuna that Yolko and Keynes were in fact still alive, stating that within safe areas a player's hit points, HP could not be lowered under normal circumstances, but the durability of objects on the other hand could still be decreased, like the sandwich, which lost its durability and shattered into fragments. The spear that pierced Keynes' armor did not lower Keynes' HP, but the armor's durability instead, which explained the dispersing shards, and that by timing for the moment the armor broke, Keynes teleported away, resulting in an effect similar to the death special effect. As for Yolko, Kirito guessed that she had the dagger piercing the back of her clothing, as she had never shown them her back while talking with them. When her clothing was about to shatter, she acted as if a dagger from the outside had hit her and fell off the window, teleporting out at about the moment that it would shatter. Kirito also presumed that the hooded murderer was Keynes, who imitated the appearance of a hooded murder to make it look as if Yolko was killed by him. At the Hill of the Cross, Schmidt realized Yolko and Keynes' plan, and stated that he was only following an order that someone had paid a lot of money for him to do. Schmidt was then suddenly attacked by a dagger and became paralyzed by it. The attackers then approached, with Schmidt recognizing them as members from the infamous player-killing guild, Laughing Coffin, and they revealed that they had come with intention to kill Schmidt, Yolko and Keynes. Just as the situation looked grim, Kirito arrived in the nick of time on a horse to save them, and scared off the player killers by claiming that he had reinforcements arriving soon. Heeding Kirito's warning, Pohoch, Red-Eyed Shaksa and Johnny Black departed from the scene. Schmidt thanked Kirito for saving them, but asked how he knew that they would be ambushed. Kirito responded that he did not know for sure, but thought it was a possibility. Kirito began questioning about the two weapons made by Grimlock. Yolko and Keynes admitted that Grimlock was not willing to help them at first, but eventually gave in to their request. Kirito told them that Grimlock did not oppose to their plan for Griselda's sake, surprising Yolko and Keynes. Kirito then recalled the conversation with Asuna. Asuna asked Kirito what he would do if he got a legendary drop. Kirito responded that he hated that kind of situation. That is why he went solo. Asuna responded that, in her guild, they have a rule that the item belongs to the person who received it. She continued saying that in SAO it was up to the player to announce what he or she received after a battle. In order to prevent having secrets and lies between the party members, she believed that it was best to set such a rule. She also believed that this rule would make marriages mean something in SAO, explaining that once two players were married, the item storage is shared with the significant other. After getting married, the player cannot hide anything anymore. Asuna thought that it was romantic and realistic, while Kirito, out of curiosity, asked if Asuna was ever married. Asuna misunderstood the question and prepared to attack with a fork. Kirito quickly cleared up the misunderstanding and realized something about the storage sharing. Kirito asked what would happen to the items if one of the couple died. Asuna then tells him that they would likely be sent to the spouse's inventory instead of being lost. Both then quickly realize that when Griselda died, due to her in-game marriage status with Grimlock, the ring had ended up in his inventory and that he had stolen it from his own storage. Now in the present time, Keynes questioned if it was Grimlock that sent the memo and killed Griselda. Kirito explained that Grimlock hired the Laughing Coffin to commit the murder. Kirito also explained that Grimlock helped with Yolko and Keynes's plan so that he could use their plan to bury the ring case forever by getting all three of them to get together and exterminate them for good, thus explaining the appearance of the Laughing Coffin. Asuna arrived with the captured Grimlock, the client of the Laughing Coffin, who was watching from a distance. After being cornered, he admitted that he was the mastermind behind the death of his wife, whose real name was Yuko. His actual motive was that he did not want her personality to change from what it was originally in the real world. Believing that his Yuko had vanished and wanting to keep Yuko as she appeared in his memories forever, he decided to kill her, convinced that he killed his wife out of love. Asuna corrected him, saying that it was not love, but a feeling of possession. Startled by Asuna's words, Grimlock fell to the ground, shaken. Schmidt and Keynes then went to Grimlock, thanking Kirito for helping them, and asked if they could take him, to which Kirito agreed. As the case drew to a close, Asuna asked Kirito what he would do if he was to get married and noticed a side of his partner that he had not known before. Surprising Asuna, he replied that he would feel lucky to be married to someone because that would mean that they would love every side of their partner that they already knew and would have another part of them to love. Before leaving, Kirito grabbed Asuna's arm to show her Yuko's ghost and felt that Yuko could then rest in peace. Asuna suddenly asked if they can add each other as friends, and even though Kirito still insisted that he was a solo player, Asuna urged him to think about it while they get some food as they head back to town. On June 24, 2024, a player blacksmith named Lisbeth, who had her own custom shop in the main town of the 48th floor, Lindath, had just finished sharpening Asuna's rapier, the lambent light. Having her interest sparked, Lisbeth asked Asuna why she was not on the front lines that day. Asuna blushed and replied that she had taken the day off to meet with someone. Lisbeth then noticed Asuna's earrings and quickly teased Asuna, but Asuna did not understand what she was implying. When Asuna heard a bell, she quickly disregarded Lisbeth's comment, realizing that she needed to hurry. Lisbeth then quietly remarked that Asuna had found someone precious. Asuna asked Lisbeth what she had just said, but Lisbeth told her that it was nothing and wished her good luck with the date. Asuna reacted by claiming that she misunderstood it before leaving. Now alone, Lisbeth wondered if she would find someone too. The next day, Lisbeth was busy forging swords when she heard a customer coming into her shop. The customer was Kirito, who had come to order a custom-made sword. Lisbeth, concerned about Kirito's wealth, wondered if he was capable of paying the costly fee due to his unimpressive appearance. Kirito reassured her that money was not a problem and asked for the best sword possible. When Lisbeth asked what about the sword stats, Kirito answered that he wanted the stats to be as good or better than his elucidator. Lisbeth gave him the best sword that she had ever forged. Ignoring her protests, Kirito tested her best-made weapon against his monster drop weapon, and to her dismay, her weapon broke upon impact. After witnessing the demise of her best weapon, which was irreparable due to the extent of the damage, Lisbeth became enraged. She challenged Kirito, claiming that with the materials she needed, she could create 12 other swords that could break his sword in half. Kirito became intrigued and teased her, stating that he would like a sword like that. Lisbeth, even more angered, struck back, telling him that he would need to stay for the whole process, starting with the needed materials. Kirito stated that he can get it alone and that she would just delay him. Lisbeth insisted that she was not weak, being an expert mace user, and that to get the material, a master smith needed to be present to be able to collect it. She then told Kirito that the material was from a dragon that eats crystals and was located on the West Mountain on the 55th floor. Traveling together on the West Mountain of the 55th floor, Lisbeth began to grow cold, so Kirito gave her one of his coats. They reached a place filled with crystals, causing Lisbeth to run forward with glee, eager to explore. However, she was stopped by Kirito, who told her to get a teleport crystal ready in case the dragon showed up, and to hide and not come out no matter what until the dragon was defeated. Lisbeth insisted that she could help, only to be adamantly refused by Kirito. Surprised, Lisbeth followed his instructions and stayed put. Kirito and Lisbeth soon encountered Ixarfin the White Worm. Listening to Kirito, Lisbeth hid in the crystals for safety, while Kirito faced the monster head-on. Kirito deflected the dragon's breath with his sword, and Lisbeth began to admire him. When Kirito dismembered one of the dragon's arms, Lisbeth, believing that the battle was nearly over, came out of hiding. The dragon quickly noticed her and targeted her with its ice breath, but Kirito came to her aid and shielded her. However, this caused them to fall into a large pit. The two survived the fall and reboosted their HP, but quickly learned that they could not use teleport crystals to get out of the pit. Lisbeth believed that the pit was a trap designed to kill players who fell down, but Kirito told her that if it was an anti-crystal area, there should be another way out. Kirito ran up the wall in an attempt to escape but fell back down due to the slipperiness of the ice. The two then resigned to their fate and prepared to spend the night in the hole. Before falling asleep, Lisbeth asked Kirito why he had saved her. He responded by saying that he thought that dying with someone together was better than letting them die alone. Lisbeth then asked to hold Kirito's hand, and they fell asleep in that position. After resting for the night, Kirito dug a hole and found the crystallite ingot. Kirito told Lisbeth that they were in the dragon's nest, and the reason why the material had been so difficult to obtain was because it was in fact the dragon's feces, grossing out Lisbeth, who then threw the ingot to Kirito. Lisbeth then brought up the fact that the dragon was nocturnal and realized that it should be coming soon. Seeing the dragon coming back for the day, Kirito grabbed Lisbeth and ran up the wall to get on the dragon. He then stabbed the dragon with Elucidator, and the dragon flew out of its nest in surprise, carrying him and Lisbeth along with it. They held hands and detached themselves from the dragon when they were in the sky. While free-falling, Lisbeth confessed her feelings for Kirito. However, Kirito did not hear her over the roar of the wind. Undeterred, Lisbeth smiled and hugged him. The two returned to Lisbeth's shop, where Lisbeth forged the material into a sword named Dark Repulsor. Kirito tested out the sword and was quite impressed and pleased with the results. Lisbeth insisted that Kirito did not need to pay, offering to become his private blacksmith in exchange, which caused Kirito to blush. Lisbeth attempted to confess again, but was at that point interrupted by Asuna, who hugged Lisbeth as Asuna was relieved to find her safe and sound, but inquired where she had been the previous night. Lisbeth replied that she had been in a dungeon with the guy behind her. Shocked, Asuna finally noticed Kirito and began to argue with him. Lisbeth then learned that Kirito came to her store based on Asuna's recommendation. Lisbeth was heartbroken when she realized that Asuna's crush was Kirito, but quickly covered her disappointment by telling Asuna that he had broken one of her best swords, and also quietly told her that he was a strange but good person and wished her good luck. Asuna blushed again upon hearing this, and Lisbeth left the shop to console her hurt feelings. Kirito found her after searching through the town. Lisbeth told him that she was not used to the adventure and to forget everything she had said. Kirito told her that without meeting her, he would still be thinking that dying was better than to live life alone, and promised her that they would clear this game and free themselves from this world. Nearly 2 years have passed since the launch of Sword Art Online. On October 17, 2024, while returning through the forest from the 74th floor labyrinth, after defeating a lizardman lord, Kirito, a solo player, spotted the rare Ragout rabbit. After successfully slaying the beast and obtaining its dropped item, the famous S-rank ingredient Ragout rabbit's meat, Kirito headed to Agul's shop in the 50th floor's main city, Algade, to sell the item. Agil wondered why he wanted to sell the item, which is worth no less than 100,000 core, as he knew that Kirito had a lot of core on him already. But Kirito told him that his cooking skill was not high enough to properly cook the meat. Thus he would just ruin the meat by cooking it, and he did not know anyone who could cook it. Coincidentally, Asuna, the vice commander of the Knights of the Blood, arrived to the shop to inform Kirito about the upcoming boss battle, and after being asked about her cooking skill, she informed the duo that she had completed it already. She was shocked upon seeing the rare item, but agreed to cook the meat for Kirito at her house, under the condition that he gave her half the meat. Agil tried to persuade Kirito to let him savor some of the meat since they were friends, but Kirito instead told him that he would write him a 2-page report on the taste of the meat. After leaving Agil's shop, Asuna told her Knights of the Blood bodyguard, Kuradil, that she would be leaving for the day. However, he was unhappy with the idea due to Kirito supposedly having a suspicious look on him. After a moment, Kuradil recognized Kirito as a beater and launched his anger and insulted him. Disgusted at Kuradil's actions, Asuna refused to hear another word from him and left with Kirito. The duo then headed to Asuna's house on the 61st floor's main city, Selmberg. While Kirito relaxed and watched the chef in action, Asuna prepared the meal with the ragu rabbit's meat, though she described cooking in SAO to be too simple and boring. After enjoying the gourmet rabbit stew simulated by the taste reproduction engine, Kirito and Asuna discussed how the players had started getting used to their new daily lives in the SAO world. Asuna then tried to get Kirito to start fighting in a group, but Kirito resisted, saying that other players would be more of a hindrance to him. Asuna persuaded Kirito into partnering with her again after so long, so that she could re-evaluate his swordsmanship. Kirito was reluctant, but still accepted Asuna's offer in the end after she threatened him repeatedly with a butter knife, and they parted ways for the night. At 9 o'clock in the morning, a tired Kirito waited for Asuna at their designated meeting place in the 74th floor main city, Camp Dead. Asuna then suddenly appeared from the teleport gate and accidentally bumped into Kirito, resulting in him accidentally groping Asuna's left breast while trying to get her off him, causing her to send him flying across the field. Asuna revealed that she was trying to get away from Kuradil, who then emerged from the teleport gate, prompting Asuna to hide behind Kirito. Kuradil was greatly displeased with Asuna's latest actions and wanted her to return to the Kobe headquarters. However, Kirito intervened, and this angered Kuradil, who then challenged Kirito to a duel in order to prove that he was stronger than him. Kirito picked the first strike option, and Kuradil launched the first attack, but Kirito easily won the duel by using Sonic Leap on Kuradil's weapon's weak spot, effectively breaking it and causing it to dissolve into polygons. Kuradil then pulled out a dagger and tried to attack Kirito again, but Asuna disarmed Kuradil and ordered him to return to their base in Granzam, relieving him of guard duty, much to his anger and dismay. She apologized to Kirito, and then they both left to explore the labyrinth of the 74th floor. Meanwhile, Pohoch, the leader of the Laughing Coffin Guild, left the watching crowd. While mapping the 74th floor labyrinth, Kirito witnessed Asuna's swordsmanship in their battles against the monsters and thoroughly recognized how she earned the title of Flash. They soon came across an eerie-looking door and realized that behind the door was the boss of the floor. They took a peek inside with teleport crystals on hand. Inside, they find the demon-like boss of the 74th floor, the Gleam Eyes. While holding teleport crystals in their hands, Kirito and Asuna entered the boss room of the 74th floor. As the blue torches lit up inside the room, they found a demon-like boss poised for battle in front of them with its great sword. Its name was boldly stated as the Gleam Eyes. As the boss poised the battle stance and roared, Kirito and Asuna immediately ran out while screaming for their lives. After fleeing from the boss room, Kirito and Asuna took a break in a safe zone of the labyrinth. While discussing a counter-plan against the boss, Kirito suggested having about 10 shield users in the fight. With the topic about shields brought up, Asuna found it suspicious that Kirito lacked a shield, stating that it was the biggest advantage of using a one-hand sword, as well as the fact that she had never seen him using the sword that Lisbeth crafted for him. Asuna explained that she had no use for a shield because she used a rapier and a shield would thus slow her down, while others had varying opinions on using a shield. As Kirito was clearly uncomfortable with the question, Asuna, even though still curious, stopped pursuing the matter as it was impolite to ask about other players' skills and brought out a food basket. After tasting Asuna's special homemade food and her self-made sauces, Klein and his guild, the Furin Kazan, entered the safe zone. After noticing Kirito, Klein asked why was he accompanied by someone due to Kirito's solo player status, but after noticing Asuna, Klein was momentarily stunned by her beauty and tried to ask her out, but Kirito punched him in the stomach, causing him to fall down. The other members of Furin Kazan looked at Kirito suspiciously for a few moments, but after a while they recognized Asuna and tried to get close to her, though they were held back by Kirito. As Klein stepped on Kirito's foot for payback and then tried to question his relationship with Asuna, they were interrupted by another guild known as the Army, who marched into the scene and had supposedly left the front lines after the boss fight on the 25th floor. The army troop commander, Kobats, ordered his troops to rest and asked Kirito if he had cleared the road up ahead. But after hearing Kirito having encountered the boss room, Kobats demanded the mapping data. Klein and Asuna were reluctant, but Kirito gave it to him as he was going to make the mapping data public anyway. Kirito warned Kobats not to go to the boss room, as his party was too small and obviously too exhausted and in no condition to fight. But Kobats ignored his comment and ordered his battalion to keep marching. Thinking that the group might get themselves into trouble, Kirito, Asuna and Klein, along with his guild, decided to follow the battalion. Before leaving, Klein requested Asuna to look after Kirito. On their way, after Klein and his guild defeated some lizardman lords, Klein believed the army teleported out until they were interrupted by terrified screams coming from the boss room. Kirito and Asuna quickly ran to the boss room while Klein and his guild fended off more lizardman lords that were respawning nearby. As Kirito and Asuna watched the army fight the boss, they noticed that the troops were in bad shape and that the boss was blocking the exit. Kirito ordered the soldiers to teleport out, but one of them told him that the teleport crystals would not work. This reminded Kirito of the incident where the moonlit black cats were killed when an anti-crystal trap was activated. After Klein and his guild had managed to defeat the lizardman lords, they proceeded to the boss room, but they watched in horror as the gleam eyes blew through the army and killed Kobats. As the boss was about to kill another member of the army, Asuna could not watch what was happening and attacked the boss, but was knocked away from its powerful punch. Kirito and then Klein soon followed her into the fray, and Kirito blocked the boss attack on Asuna. While Klein and his guild took several army members to safety, the boss started to prepare the energy attack on them, but Kirito cancelled it by attacking the boss back, causing it to stumble. But the boss retaliated and landed several hits on Kirito, decreasing his health gradually. Kirito was contemplating whether he should use it, but he then looked at Klein, Asuna, and then some other army members and saw that they were on the verge of death. He then recalled about his previous guild, in which most of the members were killed when an anti-crystal zone trap was set off, and quickly decided that there was no time to think about using it. The boss then attacked Kirito as he was distracted, but Kirito managed to block the attack. He then requested Klein and Asuna to hold the boss off to give him some time to prepare. After finding the skill, Dual Blades, he activated it and called out his Dark Repulsor and attacked with both his new sword and his Elucidator, greatly shocking everyone. He then activated one of his high-level Dual Blades skills, Starburst Stream, but after being hit multiple times, the boss managed to interrupt the attack by grabbing Kirito's Eludicator. As Klein and Asuna watched in horror, the boss began to attack Kirito with its sword. However, Kirito attacked faster and thrust his Dark Repulsor into the boss' groin area, killing it. After the boss shattered into thousands of pieces, Kirito noticed his HP was nearly depleted and fell unconscious momentarily due to the mental fatigue he experienced during the battle. After Kirito regained consciousness, a terrified Asuna quickly hugged him, and Kirito learned from Klein that 3 players including Kobats had died in that boss battle, the first boss battle casualty since the 67th floor. Klein then mused at how dumb Kobats' actions were, and there was no point in fighting when it involved dying. Klein then asked about his Dual Blade skill, and Kirito explained that the skill appeared in his skill window 6 months ago and that he didn't know the conditions he met to unlock it, which was why he didn't show it to the other players, as he was afraid of what could happen if everyone knew about it. Klein realized why Kirito did not reveal the skill, as he knew how jealous MMO gamers can be and how he would feel if he was him, and everyone knew about it. Klein and his guild then began moving towards the next settlement to unlock access to the next floor, while Asuna stated she had decided to take a break from the Knights of the Blood, stating she was scared if Kirito died and wanted to be with him. The next day, Kirito was hiding out at Agil's shop, and Agil was reading the paper. Kirito told him that the news were too exaggerated, as Agil said that a blue demon had killed an army squadron and was killed by a guy's dual-bladed 50/combo. Kirito mused how he had been chased throughout the morning by various swordsmen and infobrokers due to the revelation of his dual-blade skill. Lisbeth then walked in and teased him that was his own fault for revealing their secret. Suddenly, Asuna arrived, bearing news that something was wrong. In the Night of the Blood's base on the 55th floor, Kirito met with the famous Kobe leader, Heathcliff, who challenged him to a duel for the sake of allowing Asuna to take a temporary leave from the guild, stating that he could not allow the vice commander to leave so easily as she was a primary member of the clearer group. If Kirito won the duel, then Asuna could leave to be with him. However, if Kirito were to lose, then he would have to join the Knights of the Blood. Seeing as there was no talking out of it, Kirito boldly accepted the duel request, stating that he would rather use swords than words. After Kirito accepted the duel challenge of Heathcliff, many players gathered at the 75th floor's main city, Colinia, in a colosseum to watch the fight between the two highly skilled players. Kirito was waiting in his room with Asuna, who was still annoyed that Kirito had accepted a duel against the strongest player in the game. A terrified Asuna scolded Kirito for his actions and reminded him that Heathcliff was famous due to his unique skill, Holy Sword, that granted him an outstanding offense and defense. Plus the fact that no one had ever seen Heathcliff's health bar reach the yellow zone. Kirito then told Asuna that while he understood his odds, he boldly declared that he still did not plan to lose easily. As Asuna was watched from one of the entrances, Kirito entered the arena where Heathcliff was already waiting. After selecting the first strike option for their duel, both Heathcliff and Kirito readied themselves as the timer counted down. When the timer reached 0, Kirito started out with a full-on assault with his dual blades. However, Heathcliff was able to block all of Kirito's attacks with his tower shield. Kirito seemed to be at a disadvantage as Heathcliff easily defended and attacked using his holy sword. Refusing to let up on his assault, Kirito continued to attack by activating Starburst Stream and finally knocked Heathcliff's shield to his side, creating an opening. As Kirito went in for the finishing blow, Heathcliff moved his shield at an impossible speed and once again blocked Kirito's attack. Seizing the moment, Heathcliff made a clean hit on Kirito, causing his health bar to reach the yellow zone, therefore winning the first strike duel. On October 22nd, at Agil's item shop, Kirito spoke with Asuna while getting ready for his duties in the Knights of the Blood Guild and putting on the guild uniform, disliking it because of the colors. At that moment, Asuna used the opportunity to question Kirito why he avoids guilds and people despite being a nice person. Kirito answered by telling her about his time with the Moonlit Black Cats and how they died because of him. Although shaken by the story, Asuna hugged him and promised that she would protect him, giving Kirito some relief for his guilt. At the Knights of the Blood Guild headquarters, Godfrey informed them about taking Kirito to a mandatory training session in the 55th floor's labyrinth to evaluate his skills. Although Asuna told Godfrey that Kirito was stronger than him, Godfrey made him go as Kirito had to comply with the guild's rules despite his relationship with Asuna. To Kirito's shock, Kuradil also came to accompany them in their training, and because of now being Kirito's guildmate, apologized to him for his previous actions. Before leaving, they gave their crystals to Godfrey as a method to prove their skills. In the field on the 55th floor, they stopped to rest, and Godfrey gave them each a portion of food, though Kirito was disappointed that he had been given a regular loaf of bread. Instead of being able to enjoy Asuna's homemade food while drinking, Kirito noticed Kuradil's weird expression a moment too late, and both Godfrey and Kirito were paralyzed by the poisoned water. Kirito quickly told Godfrey to use the crystal to cure himself, but Kuradil kicked it out of Godfrey's hand and gleefully killed him, turning into an orange player. As for the excuse he would make, he told Kirito that he would claim that the party was ambushed by orange players and that he held them all on his own. After Kirito's remark about him being more suited for a player killing PK guild, Kuradil revealed his revenge plan to kill Kirito and his membership in the PK guild, Laughing Coffin. Nearly at death's doors, Kirito recalled his desire not to leave Asuna alone, giving him the motivation to attempt to remove Kuradile's blade. However, the boy was only able to resist for a few moments. With breakneck speed, Asuna arrived to his rescue the next moment, knocking Kuradile away and immediately using a healing crystal to treat his critical wounds. As Kirito was surprised to see her, she explained that she had been observing their group via the map when she noticed that Godfrey had disappeared, which prompted her to rush to their location. Realizing that Kuradile had killed Godfrey, she unleashed a flurry of attacks against him, ignoring his claims that Godfrey's death had been caused by a training accident. Gravely wounded by the girl, Kuradile suddenly begged for mercy, promising to leave the guild if he was spared. As Asuna hesitated, Kuradile made use of her lowered guard to disarm her and launch a surprise attack. However, Kirito intercepted the attack just in time by sacrificing his hand to block the blow. Using his free hand, the boy dealt the final blow to Kuradile with his martial arts skill Embracer. In his dying breath, Kuradile accused Kirito of being a murderer before shattering into polygons. After the harrowing experience, Asuna broke down in tears, believing that she was responsible for the tragedy and tearfully saying that she would never bother Kirito again. Kirito stopped her by kissing and embracing her, before stating that his life now belonged to her. Not wanting to part ways from Asuna's side, Kirito told her that he wanted to be with her for the night. After they had dinner at Asuna's house, Kirito was startled when Asuna suddenly rose from her chair, turned off the lights, and started undressing herself. When Asuna asked Kirito to take off his clothes as well, Kirito realized the misunderstanding when he had told Asuna that he wanted to be with her for the night. Kirito tried to explain the situation, however, his apologies were in vain as Asuna punched Kirito for the whole embarrassing ordeal. Afterwards, Asuna woke up to find Kirito recently out of her bed, expressing her happiness that her time with Kirito had not been a dream. After hearing that Asuna planned to stay away from the front lines for a while, Kirito brought up the location of a small village at the southwest region of the 22nd floor. Kirito then asked Asuna if she would go there for a while with him and marry him. She gratefully accepted the proposal. On October 24, 2024, the newly married Kirito and Asuna met with their guild leader Heathcliff at the Knights of the Blood Kobe headquarters and asked for some time off to recover from the ordeal involving with Kuradile, as well as due to their growing distrust of the guild. Heathcliff allowed them to take a temporary leave, stating that they would be called back to the front lines eventually. The following day, Kirito and Asuna started their honeymoon in their own house in Coral Village on the 22nd floor. Kirito asked Asuna if their relationship would continue in the real world. In response to this question, Asuna told Kirito that her feelings for him were real and when they returned, she would find him and fall in love with him once again. A few days later, Kirito decided to take Asuna to the woods to play. Along the way, Asuna managed to convince Kirito to carry her on his shoulders by pointing out that it was just the two of them there, and the two followed the path to their destination. Then, several players fishing in the lake noticed them, and Kirito, who was already embarrassed at this, ran away quickly. When they reached the grove, Kirito started telling Asuna about the rumors he heard about of a wandering ghost of the hunted monsters roaming around in the forest at night. While Kirito told the story, Asuna became speechless as she witnessed a white child figure walking in the woods, believing it to be the ghost at first, until she realized that it was a child. After Asuna alerted Kirito about the mysterious child's presence, the child suddenly collapsed in front of them. Kirito approached the child and noticed that it was a little girl who appeared to be unconscious. Thus, they decided to bring her back to their home to rest. Although they were concerned that she lacked a cursor of any kind, they assumed that it was some sort of glitch. They quickly deduced that she was not an NPC, as no harassment warning appeared when they moved her, nor a quest giver, since she did not have any sort of quest message, and thus they assumed she was a player, despite the nerve gear having an age restriction during setup. The couple decided to try to deal with the matter the next day. The next day, the girl woke up and Kirito and Asuna learned that her name was Yui. However, Yui did not seem to remember anything else, neither what she was doing in the forest, nor who her parents were. Both Kirito and Asuna tried to introduce themselves to Yui and took care not to upset her. However, Yui seemed to have difficulty pronouncing their name, so Kirito asked Yui what she rather call them. After a few moments thinking, Yui addressed Kito as Papa and Aona as Mama. The couple were initially surprised, but they quickly accepted Yui as their daughter, and the newly formed family were overjoyed. While having lunch, father and daughter teased mother as Kirito gave Yui his extra spicy sandwich, much to the latter's delight. Kirito then told Asuna that they should have an extra spicy dinner, to which she refused, causing Kirito and Yui to laugh. Once Yui fell asleep after having lunch, Asuna asked Kirito about what their next action should be. From the looks of Yui's current clothing, Kirito and Asuna considered checking the first floor, so they agreed that when Yui woke up, they would try visiting the town of beginnings for any sign of Yui's family or guardian. Later that day, Kirito carried Yui on his back and went with Asuna to the first floor. When they arrived at the teleport gate in the town of beginnings and Kirito asked Yui if anything seemed familiar to her, she replied that she did not recognize anything. As they moved to the market area, they noticed that there was a lack of players in the market area, considering the number of surviving players living in the town of beginnings. Suddenly, they heard several screams and headed towards the location to investigate. When they arrived at the scene, they witnessed a bespectacled female player named Sasha trying to save a group of children who were being harassed by the army players. They were arguing about some unpaid taxes, and the army members demanded that Sasha and the children strip off their armor and leave all their equipment as payment to them. As Sasha was about to unsheath her sword to confront them, Kirito and Asuna jumped into the action to help. While leaving Kirito to take care of Yui, Asuna attacked the group leader of the army players. Despite that players' hit points could not decrease while inside a city's area, they would still experience an unpleasant feedback of sword skills, which Asuna made full use of. After Asuna drove off the opposing players, the children gathered around to thank her. Suddenly, Yui started muttering about everyone's hearts and stated that she did not come from the first floor but from a much darker place. Yui started panicking and a huge glitch-like phenomena occurred. After Yui cried out, she fell from Kirito's back and Asuna managed to catch her before she hit the ground. Yui fell unconscious, leaving Kirito and Asuna only to wonder what happened amongst themselves. On November 1st, in the first floor main settlement, the town of beginnings, Kirito and his family were having their breakfast at the guest room of the church where Sasha and the children players were residing in. Kirito and Asuna were amazed at how many children players there were in the church. After a night's sleep, Yui had recovered from her panic attack earlier. Sasha explained to Kirito and Asuna that ever since the announcement of the death game, she felt it was her duty to look after the children trapped in the game, and thus she went on daily walks in the town in search of children players, but informed them that she had never seen Yui. Just then, they received a visit from Yulie, the vice commander of the army. Instead of complaining about them fighting her guild members, Yulie thanked Kirito and Asuna for punishing her fellow army members who were causing trouble. She then told them that she came to ask for their assistance. Yulia explained that the army became more corrupt and irresponsible thanks to the efforts of its former sub-leader, Kibao, who was trying to overtake leadership from the nominal guild leader Thinker. The guild became corrupt when Kibao came into power and enacted upon collecting taxes from people in the town of beginnings, and people were led to believe that he no longer cared about clearing the death game. As an attempt to dissuade this, Kibao sent Kobats and his men to challenge the floor boss of the 74th floor by themselves, which resulted the deaths of Kobats and 2 of his subordinates. Thus the guild planned to exile Kibao for this reckless action. Desperate, Kibao lured Thinker into a high-level dungeon without any equipment or crystals, under the guise of apologizing to him for the incident. Once Yulia heard about 2 high-level players that had come to the first floor, she went to find them. Kirito and Asuna had doubts about Yulia's story, as it could have been a trap. However, after Yui stated that she somehow knew that Yulia was telling the truth, Kirito chose to believe in her story, instead of later regretting not helping her, and thus they agreed to help. Kirito and Asuna then told Yui to stay with Sasha for safety, but Yui insisted to come with them. Having no other option, Kirito, Asuna and Yulia took her along. As they entered the dungeon, Asuna and Kirito commented on how they had never realized such a large dungeon existed underneath the town of beginnings, and how it was not present in the Sword Art Online closed beta service. Yulia explained to the group that the dungeon was speculated to have been unlocked as the clearers made progress on the higher floors, and stated that Kibao wanted to have this area for the army's personal benefit. However, the monsters were too strong for him, so he could not use it as much. During their progress in the dungeon, Kirito enjoyed himself by defeating a group of scavenger toads they had come across, with Yui cheering on. Yulie felt apologetic about compelling Kirito to handle all the monsters, though Asuna assured her that Kirito did not mind. Yulie then checked her map and discovered that Thinker remained in one spot, most likely a safe zone. After the battle, Kirito told the others that he had collected items from the monsters, most of which was scavenger toad meat, which he hoped Asuna would cook later. Instead, she disposed of them all in shocked disgust, to Kirito's dismay and despite his protests. The scene prompted Yulie to smile, an action that Yui noticed and expressed joy about, which pleased Asuna in turn. The group finally arrived in the corridor with the safe area in sight. At this moment, Kirito used his searching skill to confirm that Thinker was trapped in there. Overjoyed with the news, Yulia began running towards him, but Thinker yelled to her to not proceed, warning that the corridor was dangerous. Immediately afterward, Kirito detected an enemy named the Fatal Scythe hiding in the shadows and rushed to Yulie as Asuna vainly called to her to stop. As the Fatal Scythe was about to land a blow from its weapon on Yulie, Kirito jumped right on time and pushed her out of harm's way. Asuna then asked Yulie and Yui to run to the safe area and teleport out, to which she agreed, though Yui was concerned. Kirito was unable to identify the boss and presumed that it was as strong as a boss on the 90th floor or above. Although he also asked Asuna to go with Yulie and Thinker, she refused and stood by him. As the boss attacked, Kirito and Asuna blocked the assault, but were blown away from the hit, lost half of their hit points in the process, and were unable to return to their feet. As the boss was about to deal the finishing blow on Kirito and Asuna, Yui left the safe area just as Thinker and Yulia were teleporting away and stepped in front of the Fatal Scythe. The monster then attempted to attack her, but just after she told the couple that they do not need to worry about her, the Fatal Scythe's attack was repelled by an immortal object shield, which left Kirito and Asuna in shock. Yui then levitated, changed to the clothes she originally had when Kirito and Asuna found her, and generated the object eraser in the shape of a huge flaming sword, which she used to remove the boss with a large flaming sphere. Yui then told Kirito and Asuna that she had recovered her memories. Back in the safe area, Yui, finally pronouncing the names of her so-called parents, correctly explained that the Cardinal system, which regulated the entire SAO server, created an AI called the Mental Health Counseling Program Prototype 1, codename Yui, who was given the ability to emulate emotion to put players at ease with her. She explained that she was intended to take care of the players' mental health, but, for reasons she never understood, Cardinal prevented her from interacting with the players, effectively forcing her to monitor their emotions without a way to interfere. She only saw hate, rage and desperation in the players until she saw Asuna and Kirito, who were enjoying themselves despite being trapped in the death game, and decided to get as close to the two. Yui, crying in happiness, wondered how it was possible for a mere program to think like that, until Kirito told her that she was no longer being controlled by the Cardinal system, and thus she could think whatever she wanted. After Kirito asked what Yui wanted, she replied that she wanted to stay with them forever, and the family shared a tearful hug. Although Kirito and Asuna assured Yui that she would be with them forever, Yui sadly explained that she used a GM console, the large black cube in the safe zone, to delete the Fatal Scythe, resulting in the Cardinal system detecting her presence, and due to her disobeying its orders, the system now recognized her as a foreign object and was proceeding to remove her from the system. Yui thanked Kirito and Asuna and requested them to help other players in her stead and to continue smiling before she turned into particles of light that vanished into thin air. As Asuna descended into hysterical weeping, Kirito cursed the Cardinal system and Kayaba Akihiko, then took the keyboard of the GM console while Yui's credentials were still active and managed to save Yui's program by transforming it into an in-game object, Yui's heart, which Asuna then wore as a pendant, while Yui's data was stored into his nerve gear's local memory. On the way home, Kirito and Asuna talked about recreating Yui after they escaped from SAO. Yui's particles then floated by and her voice wished her mother good luck. On November 5, 2024, Kirito went fishing and met a man named Nishida, a well-known fisherman of the area. After talking and eating one of the fish, a few days later, Nishida hosted an event during which other fishermen came to watch. After struggling, they managed to pull the fish out of the lake until Asuna confronted the creature and killed it. But she took off her cloak in the process, and everyone was able to recognize her. But Asuna told him that she used to think the same way until Kirito reassured her to enjoy life to the fullest, convincing Nishida to rethink about living in the real world. The players could not escape and was slaughtered by the boss. Thus, a team of players from several guilds was being assembled, believing that it would be better to live in SAO rather than risk their lives in order to return to the real world. Hospitals at that moment, and that their condition could not be kept indefinitely. Prior to the battle, Kirito and Asuna found out that Klein and Agil were also joining the fight, the latter having closed down his shop. They all enjoyed a light conversation with Kirito, jokingly telling Agil that if he was participating out of his selfless desire to help, then he did not need to get any loot. Before Heathcliff and the Knights of the Blood's arrival, Heathcliff then used a corridor crystal to open a portal to the 75th floor's boss room. After everyone got ready, Heathcliff gave a word of encouragement to the players. Meanwhile, Asuna held hands with Kirito, reassuring him that she would protect him and asked Kirito to protect her as well. Kirito told the boss was above them. The boss was a skeleton-like centipede named the Skull Reaper, with a pair of gigantic scythes as weapons. The boss dropped down and immediately killed 2 players with its scythe in one hit, leaving others horrified and frozen with shock at the fact that the boss could kill such high-level players in one hit. The Skull Reaper then attacked another player, but Heathcliff blocked the attack with his shield. However, the boss quickly ignored him and retargeted the same player with its other scythe, killing him instantly. 3 began distracting the boss while ordering the others to attack it from the sides. Although some players were worried, they helped with defeating the boss. Agil, Klein, and 2 other players started attacking the boss, but the Skull Reaper smashed them with its tail, killing the 2 players and wounding Agil. Everyone then continued to attack the boss from the sides, while Heathcliff, Kirito, and Asuna kept it busy from the front. Kirito and the others continued fighting against the Skull Reaper, until Heathcliff noticed that the boss' life was nearing depletion. So he immediately told everyone to attack with full force, and shortly afterwards, they finally defeated the Skull Reaper. As the exhausted clearers rested from the battle, at Klein's inquiry, Kirito informed everyone that 14 high-level players had died over the course of the raid. Shocked, the players began having doubts of ever freeing themselves out of the death game, since they still had 25 more floors to clear. While absently noticing that Heathcliff was not exhausted at all, Kirito's attention was suddenly attracted by Heathcliff's suspicious expression, which made him recall his duel in Colinia with him. Seeing the commander focused on his guildmates and his hit points HP still in the green zone, Kirito quietly collected his elucidator, an action that only Asuna noticed, then suddenly attacked the off-guard Heathcliff with Rage Spike. Quickly reacting to the attack, Heathcliff attempted to block it. However, Kirito slightly altered the trajectory of the blow, allowing it to barely avoid the shield and continue towards his target's chest. Just before contact could be made, the attack was stopped by a purple immortal object shield, similarly to when Yui was attacked by the fatal scythe. Asuna and the other players were confused at Kirito's attack until, to their surprise, they noticed Heathcliff's status as an immortal object. As the system notice disappeared and Kirito sheathed his blade, Asuna questioned her commander on the new turn in events. Kirito explained that because of Heathcliff's status of protection under the system, his HP would never fall below the yellow zone. He also revealed that ever since the first day of the Sword Art Online official service and the transformation of the virtual reality, massively multiplayer online role-playing game into a death trap, he had been wondering where he was watching and adjusting the world to his likes. Stating his realization that the answer was childishly obvious, he declared nothing was as boring as watching others play an RPG and addressed Heathcliff as Kayaba Akihiko, much to everyone's shock. After a few moments of silence, Heathcliff inquired Kirito on how he had determined the answer, to which Kirito responded that Heathcliff's block and attack that won him the duel they had exceeded the limits imposed by the system, casually commenting that overusing the system assist was a mistake on his own part, and how Kirito's incredible speed and strength forced his hand. Heathcliff admitted that he was Akihiko and that he had originally planned to be the game's final boss at the 100th floor, much to the other players' shock. When Kirito remarked that Heathcliff's decision to have the strongest player in the game become the final boss was cliché, Heathcliff divulged that betraying everyone near the end appealed to him, and that he believed it would have made a good storyline. Heathcliff also revealed his prediction that Kirito would have been the one to fight him at the end, as he had designed the dual blade skill for the player that he intended to be the one to stand against the final boss. However, he was surprised as to how Kirito's development exceeded his expectations, commenting that these sudden turns of events were what made RPGs fun. At that moment, one of the Knights of the Blood leaders attempted to attack Heathcliff in anger after realizing the truth, but Heathcliff quickly used his personal system console in his menu to paralyze his would-be assailant, and subsequently, everyone but Kirito. The latter asked him if he would kill everyone to cover his identity, but Heathcliff replied that it would not be fair to everyone, as then they would never clear the game. He then told the players that he would await them at the Ruby Palace on the final floor. But, as a reward to Kirito for discovering his true identity, Heathcliff offered a one-on-one duel with him, with no system assist and his immortality status disabled. If Kirito managed to defeat him in this duel, the game would be cleared, and he would free all the players. Asuna pleaded Kirito not to accept the challenge and to fall back, but Kirito, having flashbacks of all of those who had died and not wanting any more deaths, accepted the wager. Kirito apologized to Asuna that he would not run away and reassured her that he would win and end the game. Agil and Klein also begged Kirito not to battle. Kirito then thanked Agil for helping the swordsman from the middle floors level up and apologized to Klein for leaving him on the first day. Klein retaliated that he would not forgive Kirito until he bought him a meal in the real world, which Kirito agreed to. Before the start of the duel, Kirito requested Heathcliff that if he did actually die during their battle, he wanted Heathcliff to make sure that Asuna could not kill herself for a while. After a brief moment of surprise, Heathcliff smiled and accepted the request, while Asuna cried out for Kirito not to do that to her. Heathcliff then lowered his HP to match Kirito's and removed his immortal object status. At the beginning of the duel, both fought at extreme speed. Knowing that Heathcliff was the one who designed the dual blade skill, and that he would be able to block the pre-programmed combos which are unable to be cancelled midway, Kirito tried to use his own skills, without the help of any sword skills. Heathcliff started to corner Kirito, scratching his cheek, prompting Kirito to desperately activate the Eclipse, a 27-hit high-level dual blade skill. Heathcliff easily blocked each and every strike of the sword skill. With the last hit, Dark Repulsor broke after hitting Heathcliff's shield, and just as Heathcliff was about to deliver the finishing blow to Kirito during his post-motion delay, Asuna jumped between the two, saving Kirito's life, while sacrificing her own life in the process, much to Kirito's shock and anguish. Heathcliff was surprised at this turn of events, saying that it should have been impossible to neutralize the paralysis on her own, as he had not programmed such a method. In disbelief of losing Asuna, Kirito swung his sword with little effort, allowing Heathcliff to easily send his elucidator flying and stab him. But as his HP was closing to zero, Kirito remembered Asuna's words of encouragement, thus the moment his HP dropped zero, and the system deemed him as dead, Kirito, rejecting the system's order to die, used the last drops of his strength to stab Heathcliff with Asuna's lambent light, killing a surprised Heathcliff who smiled as the blade pierced his body before the system managed to delete Kirito. And the two shattered into thousands of polygons, as Lisbeth, Silica, Pina, Kynes, Yolko, Sasha, Yulier, and Thinker looked on. A voice of the system announced that the game has been cleared as of 14:55, November 7th. Kirito opened his eyes and found himself in the sky outside of Enkrad. He opened his menu and saw that instead of the usual interface, only final phase at 55% was displayed. A voice called out to him from behind, and Kirito was shocked to see Asuna. He told her that he was sorry for dying and not getting her back into the real world. They then hugged and shared a kiss, while watching the destruction of Enkrad. They saw their in-game house falling down, along with many other areas. Unexpectedly, Akihiko in his real-life appearance appeared, informing them that SAO's mainframe was deleting all its data and all of Enkrad would be deleted in the next 10 minutes. He also stated that the 6,147 survivors had successfully been logged out of the game, but the other 3,853 players who died were gone forever. Kirito asked why Akihiko did all this, and he replied that he could no longer remember why he had created Aincrad. But he recalled a desire to create a castle that surpassed all laws and restrictions. He then congratulated Kirito and Asuna for clearing the game, and disappeared into thin air. Kirito and Asuna spent their last moments together, telling each other their real names as they watched the last bits of Aincrad disappear. Kirito revealed that he was the 16-year-old Kirigaya Kazuto, and Asuna was a year older Yuki Asuna. Kirito cried and was apologetic that he was unable to send Asuna back to the other world. Asuna comforted him and told him that meeting and living with him were the happiest moments in her life, and that she loved him. Kirito and Asuna then hugged each other and decided to kiss each other while waiting for the final moment to disappear as one. As Aincrad entered its final stage of deletion, Kirito and Asuna's avatars faded away along with it. Kazuto finally woke up in the real world and found himself in a hospital bedroom. While trying to make sense of where he was, as he could not believe that he had returned to the real world, he remembered Asuna, bringing tears and life back into his eyes. He took off his nerve gear and grabbed the IV drip stand for support and slowly walked out of his room to find Asuna while calling her name. One peaceful day, Asuna and Kirito were sitting on a rocking chair outside of their home on the 22nd floor. As Kirito gazed at their little girl while she slept, the sky suddenly darkened and the house began to collapse. Panicking, Kirito attempted to find Asuna, but to no avail. Left only with the rocking chair at his side, he hyperventilated before awaking from what is revealed to have been just a nightmare. Finding tears streaking from his eyes, he invoked Asuna's name in disparaging himself for crying. Kirigaya Suguha was outside having morning practice with her shinai while remembering what happened during and after the Sword Art Online incident. She was not aware that Kirito was watching her. Kazuto tossed her a water bottle and held her shinai, stating that it was light. This shocked Suguha because the shinai was made of timber bamboo and was considered heavy. She wondered what he was comparing the shinai to. Kazuto then challenged Suguha to a kendo match. To intimidate Kazuto, she asked if he could stand a chance against a quarter-finalist in a middle school nationals, but also questioned his physical state. He reassured her that he could and would show her the results of all the rehabilitation he had done in the gym. At their family's dojo, Suguha giggled at Kazuto's stance, but Kazuto proclaimed it was his personal style. Suguha saw an opening in his stance to attack, but Kazuto attacked first. Eventually, Suguha won by hitting his head. She quickly regretted hitting him, asking if he was alright. Kazuto told her that she is strong, and Heathcliff, Kayaba Akihiko, would not stand a chance against her. Kazuto took a few steps back and swung to sheath the shinai like he did with his sword in SAO, leaving Suguha confused and concerned. Realizing what he was doing, he told Suguha that it was old habits. While washing up, Kazuto notified Suguha that he wanted to do kendo again and asked if she could teach him, much to her delight. Suguha asked what Kazuto was doing that day, and Kazuto responded he would be visiting Asuna in the hospital as usual, which made Suguha upset. It has been 2 months since Kirito had cleared Sword Art Online by defeating Heathcliff. Upon being released from the death game, Kazuto traded information about SAO to the Ministry of Internal Affairs SAO Incident Task Force in exchange for Asuna's whereabouts. From a representative of the task force, he learned that 300 players, including Asuna, had yet to awake. It was widely believed that the still missing Kayaba Akihiko was behind it. Kazuto noted that the SAO incident was not over yet. Having arrived at the hospital, Kazuto visited Asuna, still held prisoner by her nerve gear. Moments later, he was joined by Yuki Shozo, Asuna's father, and Sugo Nobuyuki. Shozo exchanged greetings with Kazuto and introduced Nobuyuki as a family friend's son. Nobuyuki acted overjoyed at learning that Kazuto was the hero who had saved the players from the death game. He told Shozo that he wanted to make something they had discussed official. Shocked, Shozo asked if the man was certain with his decision, since he was still young. Nobuyuki reassured him that his heart had always been set on one thing and wanted Asuna to wear the dress while she was still beautiful, surprising Kazuto. Once Shozo had left the room, Nobuyuki abandoned his acting, grabbing Asuna's hair to sniff it and angering Kazuto. Nobuyuki explained that the chat he had had with Shozo was regarding Asuna's marriage to Kirito. Nobuyuki told Kazuto while touching Asuna's face that she never liked Kazuto. and it was likely that she had rejected his marriage proposal, so he was stepping in to marry her. Kazuto grabbed Nobuyuki's arm to stop him from touching Asuna, but he pulled back. Annoyed, Kazuto asked if he was trying to take advantage of the fact Asuna was in a coma. Nobuyuki told him that it was his right. Nobuyuki further explained that Argus went bankrupt and the SAO servers were entrusted to Rect Progress Inc., the CEO of which was Asuna's father. Nobuyuki worked under the Full Dive Technology Research Division, concluding that he was the one who is keeping Asuna alive and that he could ask for a repayment. He told Kazuto to never come back or have any contact with Asuna's family. Before leaving, Nobuyuki invited him to the wedding, which was in 1 week. That evening at the Kirigaya residence, Suguha knocked on Kazuto's door to let him know that the bath was ready. Receiving no response, she checked inside the room, where she found him sitting on his bed with the heating off. Kazuto asked Suguha to leave him alone. Seeing her brother upset, Suguha comforted him and asked what was wrong. Kazuto began to cry because Asuna was going somewhere far that he couldn't reach. Suguha hugged Kazuto and told him not to give up. When Kazuto fell asleep, Suguha put him into bed and fell asleep next to him, but cried as she did so. In a flashback prior to Kazuto's 16th birthday, while he was trapped in SAO, his aunt Kirigaya Midori told Suguha that when Kazuto was just 10 years old, he found out about his real parents. His parents died in an accident, and Kazuto was Midori's nephew, making Kazuto and Suguha cousins, not siblings. Suguha asked if that was the reason he began to play online games. Midori replied that that was not the reason, as Kazuto was already into making machines from junk parts when he was young, and believed he inherited her own love of computers. Suguha is surprised that her brother was actually her cousin. The next morning, Kazuto woke Suguha so she could do her morning practice. Still muddled from sleep, Suguha did not immediately remember the previous evening's events, and so was alarmed when she realized she was in Kazuto's bed, assuming the worst of herself. She ran from the room, blushing furiously. Kazuto, however, recalled Suguha's encouraging words. His computer bleeped to inform Kirito of an email from Agil. The message showed a picture of a girl in a golden cage who greatly resembled Asuna, surprising Kazuto. Kazuto visited Andrew, Agil, at his cafe, Dicey Cafe, and teased him about his business before questioning him about the photo that he has sent. Andrew showed Kazuto a video game called Alfheim Online, the successor to SAO, and explained that Alfheim means Land of the Fairies. Andrew then told Kazuto that the game system is not the same as Sword Art Online's. It encourages player killing and emphasizes the player's skill, which means that there are no actual levels. Combat is dependent on the player's athletic ability. The game was popular mainly because it gave the players the ability to fly, using the flight engine. But Andrew said he had heard that it was hard to control. Kazuto was very enthusiastic to try to control the wings but realized that he was getting off topic and asked what the game had to do with Asuna. Andrew showed Kazuto the pictures again and explained that the photo was taken inside Alfheim at the World Tree, which was a castle at the top of the tree. Players are divided into 9 races, and the goal of the game is to see which race reaches the castle first. 5 players had attempted to reach the top by lining up and flying but failed, though they had managed to take some pictures. In the picture they had found a cage, and inside the cage was the girl whom Andrew showed to Kirito. Kazuto questioned why Asuna was in the game. Seeing wrecked progress at the back of the box, he recalled the conversation he had with Nobuyuki, which could be the answer. Andrew told him to go save Asuna. Kazuto left with the game. Back at home, Suguha was thinking about what happened last night with Kazuto while sticking her hands between her thighs. She abruptly realized how inappropriate this was and tried to forget by eating a muffin. But with the sudden appearance of Kazuto, she choked on her food and tried to reach her juice. Kazuto gave her the juice and thanked her for making him feel better before leaving to his room. Kazuto looked at his nerve gear, recalling his encounter with Nobuyuki before putting it on. The voice of the system welcomed Kazuto, telling him to enter his character name and gender. Kazuto typed in Kirito, though he hesitated a bit, knowing that Nobuyuki was aware of his SAO avatar's name. He then chose Spriggan as his race for its black color theme while ignoring the pros and cons of each race. Kirito was then transported to the Spriggan's hometown and found himself free-falling. But a glitch occurred, surrounding Kirito in pitch-black darkness. He crash-landed headfirst in a forest. After getting back on his feet, Kirito opened the menu and was relieved to find the logout option. He then looked at his status window and found out that he had abnormally high skill values, but quickly realized that they were all his skill values from SAO that was somehow transferred into Alfheim. Aside from his dual blade skill, which had illegible text, due to Alfheim not having such a skill, Kirito then looked at his items, which also had illegible text, and tried to locate a specific item. He found the item called MHCP001 and clicked on it, materializing Yui's heart. As the crystal appeared, Kirito tapped the item, and a blinding light gleamed from the crystal. Yui's figure formed. Yui opened her eyes and recognized her papa. The two reunited and shared a hug. After explaining that they were in Alfheim Online, Yui ran an analysis and informed him that Alfheim is a copy of SAO, and thus all of his skills common to both games were transferred, though the Cardinal system version used in Alfheim was a bit outdated. Yui noted that most of Kirito's items were corrupt and recommended deleting them before the error detection program finds them. Though Kirito had regrets about deleting the items due to the hard work involved in getting them, he pressed the confirmation button. Yui then informed him that his abnormal skill values were fine unless a GM checks them directly. Yui also discovered that the outdated Cardinal system considered her a navigation pixie, and so she transformed into one. Although she did not have any GM privileges, Yui was able to access the map databases. Kirito then told Yui what happened to Asuna. Kirito noticed his wings and wondered how to fly. Yui told him that there is an assist controller. Pulling the controller toward his body would make him elevate, while pushing would make him descend. As Kirito prepared to take off, Yui told him that he could accelerate by holding the button and decelerate by releasing the button. She also told him that he could fly as long as his wings were shining, but once they reach the limit, he needs to let the wings rest. Kirito practiced his flying and tried to go to the closest town, but Yui sensed nearby players. Two players named Lifa and Recon were trying to escape to the Sylph territory while being tailed by a group of salamanders. Lifa was prepared to fight back, but Recon disapproved. Lifa told Recon to try to kill one, while she tried to draw in as much attention as she could. Lifa attacked the group and killed one player. Recon was fighting with a player and killed him before getting himself killed. While Lifa was distracted, she was hit by a fire cannon and fell to the ground. Lifa was outnumbered by 3 salamanders. Kagemune told her to give all of her money and items to him in exchange for her life. But Lifa did not agree to the proposed trade. As the two factions prepared to attack, they were interrupted when Kirito crash-landed right next to them. Lifa told him to run, but Kirito insulted the salamanders and they turned their attention to him. One of them tried to attack Kirito, but he stopped the lance with his hand and pushed the opposing player back. Getting the okay from Lifa to kill the players, Kirito took out his sword and ran it through the salamander, killing the player. As everyone was astonished by his speed, Kirito turned around asking, "Who's next?" Kirito killed another salamander player and asked Kagemune if he wished to fight, but the latter excused himself, claiming that his magic skill would reach 900 soon, and he did not want to suffer the death penalty. Kirito asked Lifa if she also wanted to fight. She declined. Lifa questioned Kirito whether she should fight or thank him. Kirito teased her, saying he is a hero who saved the princess and is expecting her to embrace him. This declaration angered Yui, prompting her to expose herself to Lifa to state that only Mama Asuna and herself could hug Kirito. Lifa came closer and wondered why a Spriggan was in the forest around Sylph territory. Kirito said that he got lost, which made Lifa laugh. They introduced themselves, after which Lifa asked what Kirito was doing and wondered if she could buy him a drink as a show of gratitude. Kirito informed her that he was looking for someone to tell him about the world tree. Lifa offered to give the details but wanted to fly to a neutral village first, which led Kirito to inquire why they could not fly to Swilvain instead. Lifa explained that it was Sylph territory and thus Kirito could not attack Sylphs, but the Sylphs could attack him. This did not bother Kirito, who still insisted on going. Lifa accepted his request, but warned him that he might not survive. Kirito noticed that Lifa did not need an assist controller to fly. Lifa explained the trick to flying without the controller. Kirito flew really high up after a push. Lifa began to worry and she followed suit along with Yui. The two discovered that he was struggling with stopping, which caused the two to laugh. After a while, Kirito became accustomed to flying and they headed towards Sylvain. When they reached Sylvain, Lifa directed Kirito to the base of the central tower, before they both realized that he lacked the knowledge to land safely. Kirito slammed into the wall of the tower, but was healed by Lifa's healing magic. Recon approached them and inquired whether Lifa was safe, but then noticed Kirito and readied himself for combat. However, Lifa stopped him, stating that Kirito had saved her from the salamanders. The two then introduced each other, but Recon still did not trust Kirito, thinking that he might be a spy. Recon informed Lifa that Sigurd and the others had left a seat for her at the usual tavern. However, Lifa declined Recon's offer, as she promised to buy Kirito a drink for saving her from the salamanders. The two left Recon behind. At the restaurant, Kirito wondered if Recon was Lifa's boyfriend, but she rejected the idea, stating that they were only party members in the game and classmates in real life. Lifa thanked Kirito and informed him that reaching the top of the world tree was Alfheim Online's grand quest, as the reward for completing it was unlimited flight via being reborn as Alfs. However, in order to complete the quest, the player would need to battle powerful NPC guardians defending a dome. Lifa considered this to be impossible, but shared her belief that people would not abandon this goal even if it took years. Kirito said that he needed to reach to the top soon, as he was looking for someone, and thanked Lifa for the information. Just when Kirito was about to leave, Lifa stopped him and mentioned that she could guide him to the world tree. They arranged to meet the next day at 3 p.m. Lifa logged out after informing Kirito that he could log out in the rooms upstairs. Suguha, Lifa, awoke in her room, recalling her encounter with Kirito, and blushed with embarrassment. Back in Alfheim Online, Yui returned to her original form and asked if she could sleep next to Kirito until he logged out, which he permitted. Kirito told her that once they saved Asuna, they would buy a house again, like their log house in Sword Art Online, SAO, and promised her that reuniting their family would be a reality. Kirito then fell asleep. At the top of the world tree, Fairy King Oberon Sugo Nobuyuki visited the saddened Asuna, whom he called Titania, his bride. Asuna refused to be called by such a weird name and, when he touched her face and tried to remove her top, ordered him to stop. Oberon revealed that he was experimenting in secret on the alteration of human memories, emotions, and senses. He was the one who rerouted the 300 SAO players and Asuna into Alfheim Online. After Kayaba Akihiko had logged them out from SAO, Asuna threatened to inform the police the moment she was released. Oberon replied that he could also alter her memory if he wanted to, but it would not be fun. Oberon left. Asuna viciously stared at him as he entered the combination, which was obscured in her vision, at the locked gate. After he left, Asuna began crying, voicing her wish that Kirito would come and save her. After logging out, Suguha remembered why she had joined Alfheim Online in the first place, wanting to see the virtual world that her adopted brother liked so much. The next day, she encountered Nagata Shinichi Reiken at her school, who invited her to go hunting on Alfheim Online. She refused, telling him that she was going to show Kirito the way to the city of Alne under the world tree, and left. After doing some potion shopping, she came to the Lily of the Valley Pavilion, where Kirito was staying at about the time that they agreed to meet on. As soon as she entered the tavern, she noticed that Kirito was already logging in. After agreeing that Kirito should gear himself better, they decided to visit the market before departing. At the market, Kirito bought a sword as tall as himself, much to Lifa's amusement. They walked into the Tower of Wind in the center of the Sylvain territory to gain altitude, since they were going to embark on a long journey. Before they were able to take the elevator, they encountered Sigurd, the leader of Lifa's party. Sigurd expressed a desire for Lifa to stay on the team since she was a valuable player, and because it would tarnish his reputation if Lifa left without a good reason. Kirito interrupted and said people are not items that he could just equip whenever he wants, angering Sigurd. After accusing Kirito and Lifa of being renegades to their own races, Sigurd drew his weapon to attack Kirito, but was stopped by one of his comrades, since it would have been bad for their image to attack a defenseless Spriggan who could not attack them within the Sylph territory with many witnesses watching. Sigurd then sheathed his weapon and told Lifa to run and hide, and that she would regret leaving him. After Sigurd and his party walked away, Lifa apologized and continued pushing Kirito to the elevator when he asked her if she was fine with leaving her fellow sylphs like that. On the balcony of the tower, Kirito and Lifa enjoyed the view of the skies. Kirito then asked Lifa what a renegade is. She told him that it is a term for players who had abandoned their territory, leading them to be disliked by many others. As Lifa wondered why players restrained others to their racist territory, Yui popped out and pondered on the negative emotions of humans. She then kissed Kirito's cheek, describing it as simple and unmistakable. Lifa was astonished when Kirito called Yui weirder than most navigation pixies and stuffed her back into his pocket. Rikon then arrived and told them that he wanted to leave with them, but he needed to investigate something and asked Kirito to take care of Lifa. Kirito and Lifa then departed, with Kirito and Yui teasing Lifa about him being slightly jealous of knowing Rikon in real life. As Lifa blushed and accelerated forward, she had doubts about leaving her own territory and becoming a renegade. Meanwhile, Asuna was being caressed by Oberon against her will, but he eventually got bored of her resistance. He tried to coax her into giving in, stating that it was simply a virtual world, but she responded that it was different to her. After Asuna mentioned Kirito saving her, Oberon revealed his encounter with Kazuto and Kazuto's reaction when he was told of Asuna's marriage to him. He also told her that because of the SAO incident, Kazuto thought that he would not have the guts to come to a virtual world to aid her this time. However, instead of having the intended effect of dampening her spirit, Asuna was quietly invigorated by the knowledge that Kirito was still alive. As Nobuyuki left the cage, Asuna watched the mirror which reflected the unobscured image of the door as it was not affected by the distance effect, and successfully memorized the code that was typed in. Lifa and Kirito defeated some monsters while flying as a team, but eventually had to land to let their wings rest. Upon landing, Lifa explained that the mountain up ahead has to be crossed through its tunnels, as its height is above the altitude limit. They proceeded to rotate, logged out one at a time, so they could eat and have their bathroom break while the others stood guard, as their bodies were unprotected in neutral zones. Lifa disconnected first and attempted to check on Kazuto, but after remembering his despair, she instead prepared a sandwich for him and then took a bath, quietly musing that she may be in love with Kirito. Afterwards, Kirito took his turn to log out and found a prepared sandwich on the table. While Kirito was away, Lifa talked with Yui about Kirito being her papa, and Yui asked her what liking someone meant. Just as she answered, Lifa blushed. Kirito returned at that moment, greatly surprising Lifa. As they were about to depart, Kirito felt as if someone was watching them. However, Yui did not detect player presence. Lifa guessed that it could have been a tracer and explained that it takes the form of an animal or insect and is used to track other players, and that higher level tracers can last longer and are capable of spying on their targets from a longer range. Right after Kirito and Lifa fly off, a tracer in the form of a bat followed them, and on the ground a hidden group of salamanders started moving. Having entered the Ligru corridor, Kirito used night vision magic to make it easier for him and Lifa to navigate the dungeon. As the two discussed spells in the game along their way, Lifa received a somewhat cryptic warning from Rikon. Before Lifa could make sense of the message, they were interrupted by Yui's warning that 12 players were approaching them, prompting Lifa to hide them with a concealment spell. While hiding, Kirito noticed a red bat, which Lifa recognized as a high-level tracer and disposed of. As the tracer was fire attributed, Lifa deduced that the 12 players pursuing them were salamanders and thus warned Kirito to flee to the nearby town. Sometime later, the two of them arrived at the lake surrounding Ligru. However, just before they could enter the city, a beam was fired overhead and erected a stone wall in front of them, blocking their advance. Upon failing to destroy the wall through physical force, Kirito wondered if they could bypass the wall by going into the river, but was discouraged from doing so by Lifa, as the lake had powerful monsters that were virtually impossible to kill without an Undine supporter. Ordering Lifa to support him from the back, Kirito engaged the salamander group in combat, only to be repelled by their frontline shield formation. As the salamanders with shields were healed by their allies, another group of salamander mages counter-attacked with fireball magic. Although Lifa's healing magic allowed him to continue fighting, The enemy's shield formation supported by healers as well as offensive mages proved to be too difficult for Kirito to overcome. Seeing the futility of their situation, Lifa proposed surrendering to the salamanders and restarting their journey from Sylvain after their deaths, only to be met with Kirito's absolute refusal to allow any of his party members to die. As Kirito continued being repelled by the salamanders, Yui ordered Lifa to use all of her mana to block the next fireball attack, giving Kirito the opportunity to cast his own illusion spell. As the flames from the salamander attack faded, Kirito transformed into a creature resembling the Gleam Eyes, inspiring fear among the salamander warriors, despite reassurances from their leader that Spriggan illusory magic was not a threat. In part due to Kirito's already high stats, he easily overcame the shield formation, prompting the mages to begin casting explosive magic, only for most of them to be slaughtered by the transformed Spriggan before they could finish their spell. Kirito's rampage only left 2 survivors, the leader and a rank-and-file mage. Panicking, the leader dived into the lake, only to be killed by one of the monsters residing inside. As Kirito prepared to kill the sole survivor, Lifa intervened in order to interrogate him. The mage refused to cooperate with the interrogation, despite Lifa threatening him with her katana. It was only after Kirito bribed the salamander with the battle spoils that the salamander revealed the leader's name and that they were gathered to hunt down 2 players. Although the salamander survivor believed such a large force was overkill for such an operation at first, he changed his mind when he learned that the 2 players had defeated Kagamune's party earlier. He also divulged that a large salamander force was heading north. Although Lifa considered the possibility that the salamander force was heading towards the World Tree, the mage argued that the salamanders were not even remotely ready for the grand quest, as it was presumed that their force would need to first acquire ancient level gear to attempt the feat. Once the salamander finished revealing what he knew, Kirito honored their agreement by rewarding the mage with the loot Kirito had acquired from the other salamanders. Afterwards, Lifa asked Kirito whether the monster was him. Although Kirito admitted that he had a tendency to forget most of his battles when he lost control, he said that he remembered being the monster and that it had been very fun slashing at the salamanders with his claws. Yui told him that he had also chomped on some players while being the monster, and Lifa wondered what it tasted like. He told them that it was something like yakiniku before being burnt. Kirito jokingly bit Lifa's hand, and in return she hit him very hard on the cheek. They entered the city and Lifa, after noticing that Recon was not online, logged out of the game under Kirito's advice to ask Recon in the real world what his message meant. After logging off and checking her phone, she noticed that Nagata Shinichi had been calling her. The phone rang again. After hearing Shinichi's complaints about her not answering his calls, she demanded to know what was happening. Shinichi informed her that Sigurd had been collaborating with the salamanders and that he had sold out their leader, Lady Sakuya. Shinichi had caught Sigurd acting suspiciously and tailed him, eventually stumbling upon his meeting with the salamanders. However, he was found out due to hitting a stone and was shot with a poisoned arrow. Shinichi revealed that a large force of salamanders were planning to attack the Sylph leader and the leader of the Katesiths during the establishment of the alliance treaty between the 2 races. Lifa connected to Alo once again and explained the situation to Kirito. She told him that he should work for the salamanders, as she believed that they were the most capable race to ascend the world tree, and thought that they would most likely kill the 2 leaders and get the money needed for their equipment. Since Kirito was a Spriggan, he could work for them as a mercenary. Kirito declined this option, stating that he would never use his friends for his personal benefit. Suddenly realizing that they were wasting time talking and not getting to the alliance treaty, he called Yui to lead the way. He grabbed Lifa's arm and with his speed, they darted through the caves, bypassing large numbers of orcs to the other end of the corridor. After Kirito and Lifa swiftly exit the cave and start flying, they notice the world tree in the distance. Kirito asked where the meeting would take place. Lifa pointed to the location and informed him that they only have 20 minutes to get there. Both increased their speed to reach the leaders in time. Yui detected 68 players on their way, presumably the Salamander's attack force, and another 14 ahead of them, the Sylphs and the Katesith diplomats. Yui said that there were only 50 seconds left before they made contact. Admitting defeat, Lifa told Kirito to go to the World Tree while she tried to save Sakuya, the Sylph leader. Kirito rejected the plan, claiming that running is not his style. Just as the salamanders were about to begin their attack, Kirito landed between the two factions, requesting that the salamanders sheath their swords. As Leafa approached Sakuya to inform her of the situation, Kirito demanded an audience with the salamanders' commander. Annoyed that Kirito had interrupted their attack, the commander revealed himself, allowing the boy to speak in deference to his bravery. Kirito bluffed by claiming to be an ambassador to the Spriggan Undine Alliance and threatening that hostilities against them would prompt all four races to wage war against the salamanders. The salamander general did not believe his claims, as Kirito lacked guards and was equipped with suspiciously shabby gear. Drawing his weapon, the commander challenged Kirito to withstand his onslaught for 30 seconds in a one-on-one battle to prove that he was capable enough to be an official representative of his faction. Recognized the weapon as the demonic sword Gram. Sakuya identified the commander as General Eugene, the strongest player in ALO. Eugene used the sun's rays to blind Kirito and began the first assault. Kirito attempted to block the demonic sword Gram, but Eugene's weapon mysteriously phased through his blade, causing Kirito to be hit and blown to a cliff, much to Leafa's surprise. Alicia Rue, the leader of the Kate Siths, explained that demonic sword Gram's unique skill, Ethereal Shift, allows the sword to phase through swords and shields when the opponent attempts to block the attack. Kirito retaliated, but was hit by Ethereal Shift again. As they continued to fight, Kirito pointed out that 30 seconds had passed, but Eugene changed the rule to a death match and continued attacking him. Eugene took the upper hand in the battle by using his sword's unique ability and repeatedly damaging Kirito while parrying all his attacks. Kirito tried to get some distance between him and Eugene and used smokescreen to buy him some time by covering the field in smoke. Taking advantage of the diversion, Kirito borrowed Leafa's katana and vanished, prompting everyone, except Leafa, to believe that Kirito had fled. Kirito surprised everyone by soaring down from the sky to clash against Eugene and drawing Leafa's katana right after he blocked Eugene's attack with his great sword, causing Ethereal Shift to lose its effect. Taking advantage of his experience of dual wielding from Sword Art Online, Kirito attacked fiercely. Eugene was not able to defend or counter-attack due to the limitation of Ethereal Shift combined with Kirito's godlike speed, eventually falling to him. Everyone was amazed by the outcome of the battle, with the diplomats cheering and the salamanders acknowledging his skill. Per Kirito's request, Sakuya revived Eugene in the aftermath of the battle. Acknowledging that Kirito was the best fighter he had ever seen, Eugene began seriously contemplating the validity of Kirito's claims about the Spriggan Undine Alliance. Kagemune, one of the salamander soldiers under Eugene's command, interrupted to inform Eugene that Kirito was the one who had destroyed his party the other day. To everyone's surprise, Kagemune falsely alleged that Kirito had been accompanied by an Undine back then to increase the credibility of Kirito's claims as his way of returning the favor to Kirito for sparing his life during that encounter. Taking the word of his own ally into account, Eugene decided to withdraw his troops as the Spriggan's allegations now seemed credible enough, and the dangers of antagonizing four races at the same time outweighed the possible benefits of the conflict. Expressing his wish to have another battle against Kirito someday, Eugene and his army took their leave. Upon being informed about Sigurd's treachery by Leafa, Sakuya presumed that the man's actions were motivated by the fact that the Sylph's power had been falling behind the salamanders, while a future 5.0 version patch was rumored to include a reincarnation system that would allow the player to change their race if the lord of that group gave their approval. She presumed that leader of the salamanders had agreed to turn Sigurd into a salamander if he brought Sakuya's head. Sakuya asked Alicia to open a moonlight mirror to talk with Sigurd. Sigurd was surprised to see the mirror and Sakuya, who informed him that his plan to kill her had failed thanks to Leafa and Kirito's efforts. Sigurd claimed that Sakuya's rule would fall without him leading the Sylph military, but Sakuya ignored his threats as she banished him from Sylph territory, stating that he could find something else to occupy him as a renegade in neutral areas. Sigurd cursed Sakuya before she forcibly teleported Sigurd out of Sylph territory. Kirito admitted that he lied about being an ambassador. There was never any Spriggan Undine alliance. He just made it up on the spot in the crisis situation, and Kirito himself was not allied with anyone. The two leaders flirted with him and asked him to join their respective forces. Leafa tried to stop them by saying that he was her partner. But Kirito rejected the offers of both leaders and told them about his need to reach Alne fast. After hearing that the purpose of the Sylph-Kate Sith alliance was support each other in reaching the top of the world tree, Kirito donated a bag of mithril-eared coins to help them prepare for the assault towards the world tree. The leaders thanked Kirito and left, telling him he was welcome to visit them once he returned from the world tree. As they saw the groups off, Lifa approached Kirito and leaned on his arm. Yui popped out of Kirito's pocket and accused him of cheating, as his heart was beating faster when the leaders were clinging to him. He said that he could not avoid it because he was a man. Lifa asked what Yui thought about her and was surprised to hear that she was just okay. Kirito messed up by telling her that she was not like a girl, in a sense that it was easier to get along with her. He then changed the topic by taking off and proceeding to Alne before the sun set. Meanwhile, in the bird cage, Asuna got up and entered the code she had memorized earlier to open the gate and left her prison, stating she would do her best for Kirito. Kirito and Lifa finally arrived at Alne and were admiring the city. The system announced that the servers would be down for scheduled maintenance and thus asking players to log out. Heeding the warning, Lifa suggested logging out at an inn. Kirito agreed, but he was out of cash. Lifa teased him and said that it was because he had shown off by giving it all away to Sakuya. Lifa asked Yui if there was a cheap inn nearby. She pointed to the inn and they walked into the city. Meanwhile, Asuna ran through the branch pathway and into a cave. Inside the cave, Asuna spotted a metal door and placed her hand on the keypad, sliding the door open. The sudden movement frightened Asuna, causing her to run and hide. After a few seconds, she took a peek at the door and saw a long and brightly lit hallway. Asuna cautiously walked through the hallway until she came across a map. She examined it and tried to find where the console to log out could possibly be until she noticed a label for an experiment room and recalled Sugo Nobuyuki's plans. Back in the real world, Kazuto washed his face and greeted Suguha in the morning. Noticing Suguha's drowsiness, he asked when she had gone to bed. Suguha told him that she went to sleep at 4 a.m. because she had been on the internet. Kazuto told her that she should not be staying up that late, though he thought that he was not the one to be saying that due to going to bed at about the same time. He then told Suguha to turn around. After she did so, Kazuto poured cold water down her back, causing her to scream. Kazuto and Suguha made food. Unhappy with Kazuto's prank, Suguha demanded that he buy her shaved ice and a parfait to apologize. He agreed, but not that day as he had something to do in the afternoon and was going to visit Asuna in the morning. This saddened Suguha. She asked if she could come, which surprised Kazuto, but he accepted the idea. Asuna went to the experiment room and there she found many pillar-like objects. Each object was projecting the hologram of a human brain. Realizing that each brain was suffering from negative emotions, she continued recalling Nobuyuki's plan and vowed to make him pay and liberate everyone. She told one of the brains to wait a little longer. Two slug-like monsters entered the room and began to monitor the projections. Asuna hid behind one of the pillars and sneaked away. While getting on the bus, Suguha asked Kazuto about school. Kazuto told her that it was planned for one of the city schools to be used for students from Sword Art Online. Therefore, the school did not require an exam to enter, and graduating from it would grant students the right to take a test at a university. Suguha thought it was a good idea, but Kazuto believed that they did this to observe them. He also states that even if he wanted to go to a regular school now, he would have to spend a year at a cramped school. Suguha encouraged Kazuto and offered to tutor him. In the experiment room atop the world tree, Asuna noticed a floating black cube and believed it to be a system console. Much like the black cube she found in SAO, that was a Game Master (GM) console. She ran to the console and slid the card slot. Many windows popped up. Asuna looked through the window menu and noticed transport and the window asking to log out. However, Asuna was caught by the two slugs and pulled away from the system console. Asuna claimed to be a friend of Nobuyuki, but the slugs denied her claim, stating that he would not allow anyone in the experiment room. They recognized her as the one who Nobuyuki kept in the birdcage. Asuna tried to reach the logout button by stretching her foot, but was restrained by one of the slugs. She questioned the scientists about partaking in such an unethical experiment, but they responded that the victims were having wonderful dreams. One of the slugs logged out to contact Nobuyuki in the real world, while the one restraining Asuna attempted to molest her. Asuna bit his tentacle, making him suffer pain as he had deactivated the pain absorber. The other slug returned and stated that Nobuyuki was angry and ordered the scientists to return Asuna to her cage, change the password, and keep constant watch on her. Kazuto and Suguha arrived at the hospital, where he introduced the unconscious Asuna to Suguha and told his cousin about her status in SAO. Suguha commented on Asuna's beauty and how unfortunate it was that she was still sleeping. She then regretted coming with Kazuto and began to question her own feelings towards her cousin as she was changing the water in the vase of flowers. At the top of the world tree, after the slugs locked Asuna back in her cage and left, she promised Kirito that she would escape from her prison. Asuna had taken an admin card from the system console when the scientists were not looking. At the bottom of World Tree, in the city of Alne, Lifa logged into Alfheim Online at the inn. They logged off from prior to the server maintenance. Kirito logged in after her. Lifa revealed that she was heartbroken. Kirito consoled her, saying that whether it is in a video game or in the real world, she could cry when she was hurt. Lifa cried on his shoulder, hoping to bury her feelings and forget them. After she regained her composure, Lifa, Kirito, and Yui walked towards the base of the world tree and gazed at awe. Kirito wondered how he could reach the top, but Lifa responded that the climbing area was an off-limits zone, and reaching the top through flight was impossible due to the flight limit. When Kirito asked about a stunt attempted by 5 people, she explained that the game masters were alarmed by the incident and patched the game to prevent access to the world tree by flight. As they continued walking, Yui detected Asuna above them, causing Kirito to fly towards the top of the world tree in a hurry, much to Lifa's surprise. After Yui informs Kirito that Mama is above them, Kirito attempted to fly to the top of the world tree. Lifa flew after Kirito and warned him about the barrier that prevented players from getting to the top by flight. Ignoring the warning, Kirito kept ramming the barrier until Lifa grabbed his arm and urged him to stop. Yui called out for Mommy. At the top of the world tree, Asuna was sitting in her chair. She received a warning notice and heard Yui's voice. Asuna tried to find where the voice was coming from, looking down from the edge of her cage. Asuna called out to Yui that she was up in the tree, but realized it was hopeless. She looked for something to drop. Yui told Kirito that she tried to use the warning mode to contact Asuna. Kirito seethed before he noticed something falling out from the tree. Kirito grabbed what appeared to be a card. Lifa did not have any knowledge of the card, but Yui recognized it as a system admin access code, giving access to GM controls with a system console. Kirito and Yui believed that Asuna dropped it for them. Kirito asked Lifa where was the gate that led to the inside of the world tree. She responded that it was at the tree's base, but it was heavily protected and not even the best raid parties could break through. Kirito then held her hand, thanking her for everything, and decided to go alone through the rest of the way and began his descent. Yui asked Kirito if he was sure about breaching the gate alone, but Kirito replied that they must at least try, and that they would not die in the real world even if they failed. Kirito also stated that they had wasted too much time already and he would go insane if he waited longer. They eventually made it to the base, but before Kirito could enter, the 2 statues blocked the pathway and asked if he wanted to go in. Then a window popped up and asked if Kirito wanted to attempt the grand quest, which he accepted. Kirito then pulled out his sword and Yui wished him luck before he walked into the dome. In the dome, Kirito saw the pathway that led to the top of the tree and flew to it. Massive waves of guardian knights began to spawn and attack Kirito. While having flashes of Asuna, Kirito killed several guardians and pressed his way to the top. However, he was shot by an arrow and spotted guardian knights wielding their bows and arrows. Ignoring the onslaught, Kirito continued to fly up, but was constantly impaled not only by arrows but thrown swords. Kirito eventually succumbed as his HP reached 0 and became a remain light. While waiting for the resurrection time to hit 0, Kirito realized that his strength meant nothing aside from skills and status. He thought he was able to go beyond the boundaries of the game, beyond the limits, and was able to do anything, recalling his memories of Sword Art Online. As Kirito thought about himself, He noticed guardian knights flying over him and engaging battle stance. At the bottom of the tree, he saw Lifa entering the dome. Lifa dodged the attacks of the guardian knights, grabbed Kirito's remain light, and tried to fly out. As she headed toward the entrance, the guardian knight struck her with arrows and threw swords at her, but she escaped. Outside the gate, Lifa brought Kirito back to life by using a World Tree dewdrop. Kirito thanked Lifa, but told her not to do things like that again, as he did not want to cause her more trouble. Kirito then walked back to the gate, but Lifa stopped him and told him to go back to his normal self and tried to confess her love to him. Kirito realized what she was about to say, but he apologized and stated that he must see Asuna again. Shocked, Lifa realized Kirito was actually Kazuto. She calls Kirito Big Brother, causing Kirito to recognize Lifa as Suguha. Lifa logged out. In the real world, Suguha woke up crying. Kazuto knocked on her door and asked Suguha what was wrong, thinking she was upset because of him using the nerve gear again. Suguha opened the door and explained that she had attempted to forget about Kazuto by falling in love with Kirito, who turned out to be Kazuto. Kazuto tried to remind her that they were siblings before. Suguha informed him that she had known they were not real siblings for 2 years. She asked if it was the reason he quit kendo and avoided her. She thought that his kindness after he came back from SAO was him giving her a chance. She told him that he should have stayed as a jerk, so she would not have realized that she liked him, been sad about Asuna and Kazuto's relationship, or tried to fall in love with Kirito. Kazuto was stunned and said that he was sorry. Suguha closed the door and cried on her bed. Kazuto leaned against the door for a moment, but then succumbed to sorrow. As Suguha and Kazuto fell into sorrow, Kazuto remembered when he discovered the truth about his parents and thought his gaming addiction was a way to run away from reality. But after his 2 years in Sword Art Online, he understood that the real and virtual worlds were the same. He then told Suguha that he would wait for her in the North Terrace of Alne, back in Alfheim Online. Suguha felt sorry for how she treated Kazuto and decided to enter Alo again. However, Rikon appeared before her, revealing he escaped from the salamanders by paralyzing them with poison and followed her all the way to Alne. Rikon noted that the Spriggan was nowhere to be found. Lifa stated she said something mean to him and that they would not be seeing him again, and told Rikon that they should head back to Swilvain. However, Rikon used the opportunity to confess his love for her and tried to kiss her. But the offended Lifa punched him and sent him rolling down the stairs. He returned and told her that he thought that if he was honest about his feelings, she would understand him. Lifa arrived at the terrace where Kirito was waiting. They decided to fight to express their feelings. As they prepared for battle, Lifa recognized his stance as the one he had used when he fought her in their kendo duel and realized why he seemed so accomplished. The battle took to the skies, but Lifa suddenly dropped her sword and fell towards Kirito, intending to be slashed by him. Instead, Kirito also dropped his sword and caught her. He told her that he wanted to apologize but did not know what to say, so he wanted her to get a free hit on him. They apologized and hugged. Kirito said he felt that he could never fully return to reality until Asuna wakes up, which is why he did not know how to think of Lifa. But she assured him that she would wait until he comes back for real, and agreed to help him finish his quest. Back in front of the dome, Rikon joined Kirito and Lifa in their raid on the World Tree. Kirito summoned Yui and asked her if she had learned anything about the Guardian Knights. She responded that their individual stats were not very high, but they made up for it in sheer numbers, and thus she believed that the quest was intended to be impossible. Kirito muses that the monsters add up to a single, unbeatable boss, but Yui also believed that Kirito could break through with his speed. Feeling pressed on time, Kirito, Lifa and Rikon decided to challenge the grand quest again without calling for help. The operation began smoothly with Kirito attacking and Lifa and Rikon staying behind for healing support, but the Guardian Knights instantly respawned into massive swarms and began targeting Rikon and Lifa when they started using healing spells. Lifa noted that the Guardian Knights had a different targeting algorithm from regular monsters. Rikon took the offensive for Lifa, attacking with magic and attracting the Guardian Knights' attention. He then used sacrifice to self-destruct while taking the lives of all the Guardian Knights around him, thus creating a large gap in the mass of the Guardian Knights. Recon turned into a remain light and incurred a huge death penalty. Kirito rushed up to the gap, but more guardian knights blocked his way and attacked while the gap was sealed up. Lifa despaired that the grand quest was impossible as she healed Kirito, but was surrounded by more guardian knights. Before they could attack her, a squad of Sylph warriors appeared, followed by a squadron of Kate Sith dragoons, Sakuya, Alicia, and their forces. After they destroyed most of the nearby guardian knights, they explained that they owed Kirito their help because not only did he help bring their alliance together, but also gave them the money needed for the raid preparations. Lifa fought back-to-back with Kirito and eventually reopened the gap. Kirito flew towards the highest part of the dome, but another group of guardian knights appeared in front of him. Lifa threw him her sword. With both swords, he broke through the mobs and arrived at the summit. Sakuya and Alicia then retreated as their mission was complete. At the top, however, the doors remained closed. Kirito asked Yui why the doors would not open. Yui told him that the door lacked a quest flag and instead was locked by system administrators. Thus, players were never intended to open the door. As more guardian knights respawned and surrounded them, Kirito remembered the card Asuna had given him and gave it to Yui. Yui transferred the data from the card to the door and opened it. She then told him to hold her hand as it was about to teleport them. Yui and Kirito were teleported somewhere atop the world tree where Yui detected Asuna. Yui, in her normal form, did not have access to any mapping data of the world tree but knew where Asuna was and guided Kirito through the corridors and exited to the branches. Kirito discovered that there was no city in the sky as claimed, meaning the grand quest was a complete lie, and cursed Sugo Nobuyuki. They continue running until they see the cage in which Asuna was held prisoner. Yui destroyed the cage's opening and ran in to hug Asuna. Kirito joined them and they were happily reunited. Kirito asked Yui if she could log Asuna out. She replied that Asuna was locked down by complicated codes that require a system console to remove the space in the cage distorted into a black space. Yui told them to be careful as something bad was approaching and disappeared. Kirito and Asuna were forced onto the floor, where they could not move. The Fairy King Oberon then appeared. Kirito recognized him as Nobuyuki. Oberon kicked Kirito to the ground and stated they were being restrained by gravity magic that would be implemented in the next patch, though Oberon defined it as somewhat overpowered. His true intentions behind Alfheim Online were for it to be a testing ground for developing technology, for controlling human thoughts and emotions. Kirito and Asuna swore that they would bring down Oberon. Oberon pointed out he was a god in Alo. Oberon summoned chains and suspended Asuna with them, leaving her standing on her toes. Oberon taunted both of them, stating non-player character women could not replicate such a scared face. He sniffed Asuna's hair and told them how hard it was to replicate her scent from the real world. Kirito ordered Oberon to stop, but Oberon instead kicked him and stabbed him with his sword. Oberon used a system command to reduce the pain absorption level from 10 to 8 to make Kirito start feeling pain. He said that he would gradually decrease the level and at level 3 or lower, it would affect his body in the real world. Oberon pulled off Asuna's top, stated he plans to molest her body in the real world while watching a recording of him doing it in Alfheim, and licked her face. Kirito wondered whether his feeling of helplessness was his punishment for thinking that he was the strongest player and for believing that he had the ability to overcome the system. Kayaba Akihiko appeared in his head and asked him whether he gave in to the power of the system. Kirito affirmed this, stating that he was nothing more than a player and Oberon was a GM. Kayaba told Kirito that if he thought like that, their battle was a lie. He also told him that he himself had learned from their battle that the human will was more powerful than the system, and encouraged him to stand up. As Oberon lifted up Asuna's skirt, Kirito finally stood up and the sword impaled in his back slid out. As Oberon attempted to slap him back to the ground, Kirito caught his hand and activated Kayaba's system ID, Heathcliff, via a voice command and then revoked Oberon's administrator status. Oberon declared Alo as his own, but Kirito remarked that Oberon stole it. Oberon cursed Kirito and tried to generate an Excalibur, but nothing happened and he ended up cursing the system. Kirito repeated the same command and spawned an Excalibur, which he gave to Oberon and grabbed his own sword. He then reduced the pain absorption level to 0, causing Oberon to panic, and challenged him to a duel. He told him not to run, as Kayaba never did so. This enraged Oberon after he figured out that Kayaba was the one who had helped Kirito. He cursed his rival and randomly swung his sword. Kirito told him that he felt the same when he lost his duel to Kayaba and had to work for him, yet he never wished to be like him. Due to Oberon's lack of combat experience, Kirito easily parried his feeble attacks, then slashed his cheek. Oberon trembled from the pain. Kirito cut his right arm off, then his legs, and grabbed Oberon's head, throwing it into the air and then stabbing his right eye with the sword, killing Oberon. Kirito broke Asuna's chains and hugged her, crying. Asuna told him that he was her hero, but Kirito admitted he was actually weak and told her that he would do his best to become stronger. She leaned on his chest and shed a tear as she told Kirito they should do all sorts of things in the real world. He logged her out. Kirito called Kayaba, who then told Kirito that he was Kayaba Akihiko's afterimage. Kirito then thanked Kayaba, but Kayaba rejected it, stating that they were not close enough to do things for each other for free, and that there was a price for his aid. Kayaba gave Kirito an object called the World Seed that was the beginning of a world. He told him that he wished to see it grow, although it was up to Kirito what to do with it. Kayaba then left, hoping the two would meet again. In a yellow binding light, Kirito was warped back to the birdcage. He then called for Yui, who popped out from nowhere and hugged her papa, stating she hid in Kirito's nerve gear's memory, where Kirito had saved her core programming. He informed her that Asuna had returned to the real world, and Yui felt a little disappointed at her not being with them. But he stated that she would come back to the game, to her delight. Kirito kissed Yui on the cheek and logged out so he could go to the hospital where Asuna was. When Kazuto opened his eyes, he found Suguha waiting and worried as he had been in Alo for a long time. Kazuto informed her that everything was over and thanked her. She leaned on his chest and he placed an arm around her. Kazuto also informed Suguha that he had rescued Asuna, but as he tried to apologize, Suguha told him to get going to the hospital as Asuna must be waiting for him. Outside where it was snowing, Kazuto took his bike and started riding to the hospital, with Suguha requesting he properly introduce her to Asuna. Kirigaya Kazuto continued riding his bicycle to the hospital, but fearing for Yuki Asuna's safety, he pedaled faster and eventually arrived at the parking lot. As he ran towards the entrance, someone appeared and lacerated Kazuto's right arm. When he realized that he had been cut and saw blood dripping, he turned around to identify his attacker, Sugo Nobuyuki, Oberon. Nobuyuki was angered that Kazuto not only thwarted his plans but also caused him immense pain, since if the pain absorber level was set to level 3 or below in Alfheim Online, Alo. The pain also affected the person's real-life body, and Kirito had set it to level 0 during their duel before slicing Oberon into pieces. Kazuto advised Nobuyuki to turn himself in, but the latter refused, stating that other companies would accept and shelter him due to wanting his work. He then decided to kill Kazuto to take his revenge on him. Kazuto fell on the pavement as an attempt to dodge Nobuyuki's attack, but was then repeatedly kicked by him. Finally deciding to finish him off, he tried to stab Kazuto but missed as his right eye was still blurry from Kirito's attack. Nobuyuki then tried stabbing him again, but this time Kazuto grabbed his arm and reversed the situation. Kazuto pushed Nobuyuki off him, took the knife, smashed Nobuyuki's head against a car and put the knife to his throat. Contemplating everything he had done to him and Asuna, Kazuto was about to kill him for revenge, but ended up sparing him and left the fainted Nobuyuki in the parking lot for the police to arrest him. Arriving at Asuna's room, Kazuto paused for a moment before a voice encouraged him to continue, and he moved the curtain to find Asuna waiting for him. He came up to her and told her that everything was finished, even the true final battle that occurred moments ago. They then hugged, kissed, and revealed their true names to each other as if they had only just met and fell in love. Kazuto looked at the window and saw their Sword Art Online (SAO) avatars who held their hands and left together. 25. Kazuto was at his new school. As one of his classes was now over, and it was time for a lunch break, he walked to the park outside the school, where Asuna was waiting for him. She greeted him as Kirito, but he reminded her that was advised not to run. As he held her hand, Asuna arrested in the parking lot and was then interrogated, trying to frame Kayaba Akihiko for the experiments. but once one of the employees agreed to testify, he confessed. The 300 players who had not escaped from SAO were freed and did not remember anything that happened during their experimentation, and fortunately did not suffer any neurological problems. Thus they could return back to society. Shut down, along with Kazuto, not expecting 5 or 6 other VRMO games to survive for long either. Asuna then asked what happened to the commander of the Knights of the Blood, Heathcliff Kayaba Akihiko. Kazuto told her that he had died, and the authorities suspected that he had committed suicide. Kazuto then explained that when SAO collapsed, which had a 1 in 1,000 chance of succeeding, Kazuto thought about Akihiko because of meeting him in Alo, before affectionately leaning against him. Ayano Keiko, Silica, told her to stop slurping so loudly and watching them. When Rika complained about Kazuto and Asuna being so intimate at school, Keiko told Rika that it was her fault for agreeing to let Kazuto and Asuna enjoy themselves for 1 month without taking any action herself. Something Rika regretted. Shortly afterward, in the afternoon, Kazuto and Asuna were walking on the street holding hands, while Kirigaya Suguha was following them quietly. Kazuto then... She answered that she had hunted with him twice in Alo, so Kazuto warned her that he was equally tall in real life. When they arrived at the Daisy Cafe, everyone was already there. Kazuto asked for confirmation whether they were late, and Rika teased him that the stars always arrive last because they told them to come at a time a bit later than everyone else gathered. After leading him in, everybody congratulated Kirito for clearing SAO and freeing them from the game, much to his surprise, stating he could not pull overtime on work without alcohol, plus everyone was enjoying themselves. When Thinker also joined them in real life, before discussing Thinker's gaming information site. Thus, the VRMMO industry was revived. Alo's data was transferred to another company, which was created after the Alo incident by former players of the game, while other companies and even people began to run their own server of their own game. And those began to be compatible with the others, achieving the goal of the same avatar being usable in different games. Kazuto then city as planned. Meanwhile, Suguha was sitting alone, feeling left out from the SAO survivors. In Alo, Lifa was flying alone above the Kate Sith territory and tried to reach the moon, but was stopped by the altitude warning sign. While falling, she recalled the recent events of the party, and in the clouds she was caught by Kirito, who had come to get her since they were about to meet with the others soon at Yggdrasil city. She asked him why had he not returned to his SAO avatar like the others, but Kirito replied that the job of his SAO avatar was completed. She then taught him of a new mechanic in the game, dancing, and opened a bottle which played music for them all just to lighten up the mood, since she was sad that she would never be able to catch up to everyone else. Kirito did not believe her, as he believed that she could go wherever she wanted, so he grabbed Lifa and started flying towards Yggdrasil city, but did not manage to reach it on time. He stopped midway near the World Tree and showed her a giant floating castle that came into view, New Aincrad. Surprised, Lifa asked why was it in Elo, and Kirito explained that this time he was going to finish it to the end. He then told her that his stats had been reset and asked her if she would help him, to which she gracefully agreed. At Klein's mild rebuke for their tardiness from behind them, Kirito and Lifa turned to see him, Agi, Lisbeth, Silica and Pina, along with Thinker Yulia, Sasha Sakui. Asuna, now an Undine character, stopped and called for Kirito and Lifa, as well as Yui appearing and sitting on the shoulder of her papa. Everyone flew to Aincrad.